All right, so we are live. How you doing, Mertz?
Doing well, Jake. Thanks for having me on. How are you tonight?
I appreciate you making the time to come on the channel
Of
and hang
course.
out. I just got done with a business trip, so I didn't make any videos this week, and I was like hankering to talk Pokemon. I didn't know that there were going to be a bunch of other lives going on and all that stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time and anyone who's in the chat who's going to ask questions and engage and help us kind of hang out and have a good time.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Friday nights are always my favorite times to just chat, tune into live streams, jump on them, talk Pokemon. I love to wind down the week with a nice Pokemon chat and stream.
So we should have also for the chat to know like one or two other people maybe popping on it at some point, just so you guys are aware. But the point of the video tonight, I really wanted to talk about, and we can certainly, people can ask market questions, at some point during this live, I'm sure Mertz is down to answer whatever is on people's minds. But I wanted to have a few people on who, to have a discussion about like, how do we continue to collect in 2023? How did we collect in 2022? What do you do if you think the market is still overinflated? These types of things. If you think things are still expensive, how do you collect responsibly in a way that doesn't burn you out, that doesn't cause addiction issues, that doesn't cause you're spending too much time or energy in the hobby, and it's taken away from other areas of your life? I've had a number of people come to me and talk to me about feeling addicted, feeling burnt out, feeling lost, that they've lost a lot of money, these types of things. And so I've responded and made some videos about that from sort of a market perspective. But I think that there are, and maybe I'll start, I get a lot of pleasure, and even joy at times, I would say, from being in this hobby, and certainly the relationships and the friendships, but even just from the process of like collecting and learning about new cards and buying new things. And it doesn't always need to be really expensive stuff, and it doesn't always need to be really time consuming. And so I think that there are ways to still enjoy this hobby while not being financially irresponsible or irresponsible with your time, investing so much time here that you're not spending time with, in your case, your fiance, my girlfriend, your family, and having that balance. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, where you're at sort of in 2023, how you're going to try to find that balance for yourself and like continue to enjoy collecting, which you and I are fundamentally, I think, here to collect.
Yeah, absolutely. So where I currently am, and at this time, I've actually really ramped up my purchasing this year, and late in 2022, at the beginning of 2023, I've kind of started to ramp up that purchasing, ramp up the speculating, purchasing things with the intent to flip and sell. So it's interesting we're having this conversation because I'm kind of going the opposite direction lately. I registered as got the paperwork in order so I can not pay sales tax on items intended for resale. So that was a big step. Obviously need to take care of that if you want to make any type of profit. But I've really, ever since Denver Collecticon, I've kind of jumped a little bit further in purchasing modern Japanese promos and in trying to do the flipping game, first to market, grading, and that's really ramped up in the last couple of months. And because that is ramped up, it's trying to think of the best way to explain this. I've seen more of a sharp contrast in that type of mindset versus the collector only mindset that I was mostly in up until that point. For the first year and a half, almost 2 years up into the hobby, I was solely a collector, slowly picking up pieces for what's up, Colt?
What's going on, guys?
How's it going? So, but I was just in the middle of my current journey there. So yeah, I've noticed a stark contrast between like purchasing things and being involved in the hobby that way, and just as a pure collector. And it's really kind of made me hyper aware of what I'm doing right now and how I can balance that. So it's I haven't been involved heavily on the selling side like that. So I think it's really making me start to think a little bit more about the collecting side and what that means to me, why I'm here in the first place. And it's really made me reflect on that a little bit up until this point. So I am very serious about collecting. My main collection goal is collecting a master set of Komiya cards and certain holos and PSA 9 condition. I just put out a recent video about my main collecting goal, kind of talking about this exact topic of money versus pure collector, and are the evil investors versus the pure collector. And I think the main thing that I took away, or one of the main things that I took away, and kind of reflecting on that, making that video, thinking about my own process and how I'm involved in the hobby, is that there's room for both. And I think that was a big takeaway for me. I think that the society that we live in, and sometimes the things that get clicks on YouTube and social media, is either or. It's black or white. It's investing to the moon, or it's the people who are pure collectors talking down on the people who are not. I guess I shouldn't say talking down, but it's very stark differences, and it's either or, black or white. And I just feel like there's a lot of gray, and I feel like that you can be a true collector and a pure collector, and have those goals in mind, and also buy and speculate and flip and flip things that you don't intend on keeping in your personal collection forever. And a lot of us, myself included, use the money that we make from flipping Pokemon to purchase things for our personal collections. And I know each of us have different degrees on how much we keep for the personal collection, if we get certain grade returns back. And everybody has their own relationship with how much they stash away or how they view their personal collection. But I've really had to reflect, and I think that's the first point that I want to make, is that we really can do both. So that's how I would start that off.
Yeah, and I think that people who just flip and sell, it doesn't mean that they don't really like the cards and they're not really passionate about the cards. I think one thing that can happen for people is they start by collecting. They don't particularly like their jobs that they're currently working in their life. They realize that, oh, I can actually make quite a bit of money doing this. Maybe I can leave my job, or I can supplement my income in a way that actually significantly impacts my life. And then maybe I start doing that a bit. Then I become successful enough that I can actually leave my job, given my current circumstances. And I actually like doing this a lot better than I like my job. I think that's something that can happen. I think when that does happen, it certainly makes it, you may not be able to collect so much or as much. I think for this video in particular, I think we should talk about these things. I think it's all great. We can take it in any direction. I think that the majority of people who watch this channel or engage in this channel are still in the I'm flipping and selling to make money to collect, with the goal of I want a collection that I really enjoy and that I really like. Now, obviously, I also like going on vacations and spending money on my girlfriend and going out to dinner. And there are things, sometimes I look at a card or two and I say, you know what? I think I'd rather have the money, because I'd rather put that money into something else in my life. So it doesn't mean that you're not a collector, you don't really like collecting because you have those moments, or you move things around. But I do think that, some of us, most of the time, get a lot of joy from collecting, and it's worth the money. But yeah, as things get expensive, and I think part of the point of this video, and then I'll leave it for you, Peak, to respond to some of these ideas. Part of the point of this video is how do you collect, particularly if cards you like are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and it's that's how much I make in a month, or that's my bills for a month. Do I still get the same enjoyment of doing that? does it need to now be an investment? Is is that risky for me? And how do I balance all those things and still really enjoy collecting? Because like, again, like I love all the elements of the hobby and the interactions, but I still get so much joy from like grading cards and collecting and building sets and hunting stuff down. And it's still a huge part of why I'm here. How about you, Peak?
What was the question? Thank you guys for having me on, by the way. Or thank you, Jake, for having me on. Good to see you, Mertz. The beard is very thick today. I did not expect to see that, so that's awesome.
Yep, got the beard flowing. Wintertime, gotta stay warm.
Nick, old school, please pay attention. This is where we need you. Make it happen. So the question is around collecting, around selling versus collecting. Is that, I'm just going off what you guys' responses were.
The title of the video is just collecting Pokemon cards in 2023.
Yeah.
So, are you collecting? How are you collecting? What are ways you're working to collect this year? And, and we're talking about, selling or flipping, as a way to maybe fund that. Or there's some people who just are leaving the who don't want to sell and flip, but they don't want to keep collecting, right? So there's that group of people. Then there's people who like, I want to learn how to sell and flip more because I want to fund my collecting. And then I think there are people who it's like, I want to learn how to sell and flip more because I want to actually have this be my job or a main source of my income. And then you have combinations of all of those things. It's not.
Right. So, I mean, I would say that I definitely align more. I don't know if it's just me. Is he frozen for you, Mertz?
He's frozen for me. I can hear you though.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I enjoyed the spirit fingers though. It really put the emphasis. No, the
you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
You're good. You're still a bit choppy, but
Can you guys hear me?
Audio fine.
Yes.
Yeah, audio is good. So when it comes to selling and versus collecting, I think they definitely intermingle once you get to a certain level of like what you want to collect. I know, Jake, you mentioned something around like the $4,000 price point for certain cards that you like. For anybody who has seen any streams I've been a part of or anything, my collecting goals are extremely difficult to get to, and they're definitely in the upwards of high five figures for what I want to be able to get. Your PSA 9. Oh, he jumped out. Welcome to Pokenomics, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It's just us running the channel now. But yeah, I'll kind of finish that. So my like Jake, your PSA 9 Tropical Wind is like super goals. I would take that in an 8, and I can't say I would say that about any card ever. I'm still a quality snob, but still, I'd still am like, I'd only take a Tropical Wind at an 8, but an 8 or 9 is like the ultimate goal for me. And those are really, really difficult to attain with traditional like W2 jobs. It's just not something that the average person is able to even, first off, even comprehend, much less like try and shoot for. So, that's really what got me more into selling in order to fund certain collection, I guess we'll call them like hurdles that I want to get to. So usually, starting off, there's certain cards that I want that are, 250. There's some that are 500. There's some that are 1,000. There's some that are 25, 50,000. I think it's all about what's your vehicle to actually get there. And I think Jake made a good point in the fact of like, people do get that kind of misconstrued as if you're only selling and flipping or you're only collecting, and there is no in between. And realistically, I think most people in this hobby that I deal with that are fairly engaged know that selling and quote unquote flipping, it's almost inevitable depending on what you want. For me, I started off, I'm like, okay, I want to buy some Japanese ANA airline promos. I really like those. They're $100. Cool. Let's make it happen. Now I want the JR stamp rally stuff. Awesome. Ended up going out and buying those. But then you start looking at rare and rarer tiers from my experience. You want more rare stuff. You want either low pop or, obviously low pop condition, depending on what, you're looking for. Or if you're a set collector, you're like, hey, I want gold stars or whatever it may look like. So once you start seeing some of the prices, either you benefited tremendously from the boom in 2020, 2021, like a lot of people did. Or if you didn't, like myself, I didn't have a ton of inventory that I could just sell into that hype. I have to be able to get that disposable income to put into that. Jake had mentioned, hey, this is how much I make in a month. You should not be doing that. You should not be putting that into Pokemon cards. Definitely pay your rent, make sure all that stuff happens. And then, buy what you like in the price point that you are comfortable with that you won't even notice. I know Basic Trainer, shout out him. He had a really good phrase that he said that he he said, once I buy something, I immediately in my brain say, this is $0. Like that's what it's worth. And I think it's a really good way to start off and do that. Because I think once you start assigning, monetary value to it and you go, hey, it might be worth this, it might be worth that. You're not buying it to collect, you're buying it for a long-term hold or a short-term flip. So, yeah, I think collecting right now, you're here. It's all good. I think it's definitely something that they do intermingle more often than not. And speaking for myself, I sell, I flip things, but I do have certain cards that I like that maybe they are expensive, maybe they're not. But like Jake said, sometimes they really like the cards. I'm one of those people. So a little bit of a long rant, but that's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah, and I think something kind of important to point out is I don't think that if somebody is just flipping with having zero collector mindset and is just the goal is just to make money and they couldn't care less about the cards, they're not going to stay around for long. They're
Absolutely not.
They're going to be out in a month or two. Like there's just no way. You have to, in my opinion, you have to love this stuff like with an actual passion if you want to do that. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to ever have the knowledge. You're not going to want to have the passion to look into these types of things. So I think that everybody's got a collector in them. And if they don't, they're going to be out of here soon. But I think that I think Jake is popping in and out. I'm not sure what he's looking like on the actual stream here, but I think the stream is still live. So I'll keep on going. But in terms of making like large purchases like that, I actually just made the largest purchase for my personal collection a couple months ago, and it was in that range of over $1,000 for one card. And I actually got it right here. If anybody's familiar with this, just put out a video about this. You know this card?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. That's one of my favorite ones, if not my favorite jumbo that they've got. It's so cool.
It is awesome. It's actually not quite as big as a full size jumbo. It's a little bit smaller. It's a 4x6. It's like a postcard. So
yeah, postcard. That's right. Because it's that one, and then I think the other one that I really like was it's like the New Year's fireworks.
Yeah,
the Pokemon are all facing. I think it's the same size as that one, and it might be.
It is
that, but
yeah,
those two in particular are they're so awesome. I love them.
It's a part of the Pokemon fan club release, and they had a series of normal size cards, the Eevee and the Porygon being the most popular, and then they've got 4 to 6, I believe, jumbos. But in any event, that is the card that I just picked up a couple months ago. That for me was the biggest purchase that I've ever made for something that is for my personal collection. Like I didn't buy that to speculate on it, or I'm not gonna flip it and get a different cut. Like I bought that with the sole purpose of that will go to the grave with me, or go to my kids. That's a forever piece, and that was something that was important to me. And it was kind of strange to. It is a tough thing to rationalize as being an adult with, who wants to purchase a home soon, who's getting married, who has a career to spend. Not
these are all distractions from Pokemon cards, and you need to wise up and just know that.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. It's a tough thing to explain. It's the first time that I've done that with a higher amount like that, and it was just I'm struggling to find the right words for it. I don't feel the need to justify it, to say this is why it's such a cool card and so rare that it's worth $1,000. Like it was a personal decision. I really, really value that. I enjoy the collection goal that's going towards. It was fun to chase that card, to find it after searching for a long time. It's fun to own something that's limited, that's rare, that's scarce. And it goes within my main collection goal. I don't know. It's a strange thing. Like if you tell this to a person who doesn't collect anything, like, hey, I just spent over $1,000 on this piece of cardboard. That's a tough one to rationalize or explain to a person that doesn't do that. But I think that I don't know. I'm struggling to find the right words. Like I find myself wanting to like justify it and say this is why it makes sense, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to, because it's a personal. It's very personal. It's a personal choice. It's something that means a lot to me, and it probably doesn't mean a lot to anybody else. So I don't know. That's
I loved seeing it. It was actually a surprise when I saw you post that, and then obviously do your video on it. I was like, I didn't even know Mertz like no offense to you. I just don't see a lot of like, old school vintage Japanese talked about, especially promos. So I was like, I didn't know Merce was picking up like the postcard Gyarados. Like, this is so
Yeah.
sick. So
This is it's illustrated by Komiya. So this is
that's why.
it
Yeah.
is that's the reason that I was chasing it, because it's the rarest and toughest to kind of acquire.
So what's funny is I never like talk about like PC or personal items ever on any stream that I do, and because I haven't really achieved a lot of them. But I did just do a PSA return video, which I hopped out of here. Which, Jake, you're my first raid. All like 8 or 10 how many people are watching. Thank you
Little
to the
peak
legend.
raid.
It was awesome. I was pumped. But I did just get this back in a 10, which is like not even a crazy expensive card. I'll see if the camera can do something with it, but it's a link card. Nothing crazy.
Nice.
There we go. So I love the art, but again, I don't even know what this card's value at. This probably has no comps. Probably a $50 card, if that. But that is like going into PSA sleeve. I will keep that only because it kind of embodies like this art style that I like and like an IP I love. But that's the thing with collecting is like, and it might have been Ancient Mew maybe that said it. There's so many cool cards around like the $20, $30 price point. It really just depends on what you're looking at. And you don't necessarily have to sell and flip or whatever it is. You can save up for $100 card. You can save for a $200 card. And especially if you don't care about conditional rarity, maybe you're just going for binder sets, you just want to clean the front. There's a lot of different ways to collect. But if you are looking for high-end cards, I truly think it's inevitable that you're going to have to like sell into the market at some point. You're going to have to interact with collectors, not only just from a financial monetary base, but also you have to build relationships to find some cards that you're looking for, depending on what, the goals are. Jake, how are we doing? Are we hardwired?
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Somebody was like, they hacked his channel just to take it over and do a stream together. I was like, well, hacks, it happens.
It's weird. For some reason the internet is not working in my office, so I went into another office here.
You're crystal clear now. It's like perfect.
We took over the channel, said a bunch of crazy things, and gonna get you demonetized. Sorry about that.
You'll have a strike after this one. No worries.
So so I don't know where we're at, where the conversation is at, but
in essence, I just said, depending on collecting goals, you have to sell into the market. It's normal. I do it. Most people that I know do it. I think after you get, past like your $20, $30 cards, you end up, chasing any, especially conditional rarity. It's inevitable to do it because W2 money is not going to pay for some of the values of cards in this hobby. It's just not going to happen, or other hobbies, but especially the higher end of this hobby. And then Mertz flexed his $1,000 purchase, which is awesome.
I was talking a little bit about kind of how do you rationalize spending 4 figures, 5 figures, whatever the case, whatever is allowed to you on something that you have no intention of selling, and just kind of that thought process and how do you explain that to others? And I kind of came to the conclusion after talking about it out loud, like I shouldn't need to explain it to anybody else. Like I don't think I owe anybody an explanation on why I spent that type of money. Maybe I owe my fiance that explanation because we're sharing a bank account, but like, I don't feel like I owe anybody in the community to justify this purchase. It's a very personal purchase and a very personal relationship with that card and that collection goal that I kind of feel like is just unique to myself. And I don't want to have to justify it to anybody except for my fiance, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's echoing a couple of things that you guys said. That's very true for me. There's so many cool cards out there. There's so many cool cards within Pokemon. There's so many cool other cards. There's so many cool non-cards, pop culture collectibles. There's just a lot of great stuff to engage in and to figure out. Really, the goal is just if you like to collect things, it's just figuring out what you like to collect and then how to afford it, and then how to afford it over the long term, and then also how to keep it healthy so that it's not so much time or energy of your life that you don't have those other hobbies and those other people and those other things that are balanced. I had someone write on one of my addiction video recently something like, I feel like I have a problem with this and I'm addicted, but I've had a really hard year, and it sort of feels like Pokemon or drugs, basically, was what the person, or hard drugs, or what the person wrote. And I do think like the shaming that people can do around like, you shouldn't buy this stuff, or you have a problem here. Like, these things are very like, it's really not just as sort of Mertz was saying, like, it's really not for like someone else to judge you. That's like a personal thing to figure out, like, because even if you are overspending and working on that, maybe the benefits outweigh the negative stuff at the moment, and now you're working on curbing it and getting it into a healthier place. Like no one's perfect, and I think that the black and white thinking, of sort of like, this is all positive, this is all negative, I think is unfortunate that I see from people. And this person should, the fact that they've had a really hard year and Pokemon is helping them, or card collecting is helping them, is a phenomenal thing. Like, that's awesome. That's like a wonderful thing to hear, and this person feeling, where they are like ashamed maybe that they're overspending a bit. Like, there's probably something good about that, of like, okay, this is a great thing to be a part of, but now I need to figure out how to, maybe step it back a little bit and find that balance. But I don't want to give this up completely, because it's really helping me with whatever issues are going on in my life. And I, so many people have great stories about how Pokemon, because it's cute, because it's fun to chase rare things, because it reminds them of a simpler time in their life, it's a place that can be really helpful for mental health. I think that stuff should be encouraged, but there definitely can be a sophisticated conversation, particularly when we bring in the finances, around like, how do you afford that? How do you make that sustainable for yourself? And as I was saying before, I think my internet went down, I really view it as like there are three sort of categories of, of people. And often you spend time in each. It's sort of like, I'm just collecting, I'm flipping to collect, or I'm flipping and reselling to support other areas of my life beyond even the collection. Mm-hmm. And people try a number of those things. And by the way, like, I started with, I'm only ever going to flip to, or invest, really, in my case, more to collect. And then the hobby went up so quickly, or so much, that it was like, well, now there's so much money here. I'm actually going to use this to like fund other things and invest in stocks and spread that out. And then if that money disappears and there isn't that excess money, then I will stop doing that, and all of the money will go back into collecting. It all depends on how much money you can actually make, how sustainable all of that is. And that's all very risky, right? I mean, everyone knows, anyone starting a full-time Pokemon business, well, hopefully starting a full-time Pokemon business, it's like, you're going to want as many streams of income as possible with that.
Absolutely.
Because some streams of income are probably going to be more sustainable, and others are not, and it can be hard to predict, and so I think some people are really thoughtful about that, are really smart about that, and have made the plunge. And then I think other people, it's more risky, but they also may really hate their jobs, and their jobs are not paying them that much. And so it's the risk, even though it's risky, it's better than what they were doing before. And that person shouldn't be like put down, or, it's nothing to do with being stupid or not understanding the risks. It's often, anyway. So, but as far as collecting and bringing it back to that, about what this video is about, for me specifically, like, there are, set cards that I'm starting to pick up again within Pokemon here or there. I'm starting to work to rebuilding my collections. There's still other TCGs and CCGs I talk about that I'm putting most of my attention to, because I still think there's a better value. But like, the lower prices go in Pokemon, the greater it is to collect again, the greater it is or invest again. The fact that prices are going to come down a lot, and the lower the prices, the better, because it's still fundamentally, they're the same items to me. And I'm not basing my investment or collecting theses, my long-term ones in particular on sort of short-term demand and price sentiment and what other people are saying at the moment. And the cheaper these things that I think are cool are, the more value they're going to have to me as a collector or investor. And that's how I view these things. But for me, it's a long game. It's, you know, as long as I'm having fun, what's my rush? You know,
Right.
and I focus on that a lot. It's like, if I'm stressed and I'm not enjoying something, I try to make it better. But if I'm having like a great time picking things up slowly or not buying anything at all, you know, what's the rush?
Well, I think that's something too, like with the person who commented on your addiction video, and it's like, if they're having trouble, like not buying, or say they know that they should not be buying, it's it's kind of hard, right? Because I think that that's not necessarily a Pokemon issue. I think that's probably something with that person, that they have a tendency maybe to overindulge in whatever they're into. So whether it be Pokemon, it could be, you know, I love going to the casino all the time, or I love like food, like I love eating out. I don't cook at home, you know, whatever it may be. So I think, you know, and I've had a couple of people, like I've seen in either Discord groups or something. Some people have talked about it, and Facebook groups are rampant for this. It's like some of the stories from those guys are like, instead of changing my tire, I went out and bought a slab. It's like, I think it's definitely, I think maybe Ancient Mew or somebody said this, everything in moderation is key, and it really is true with that. And I think the special thing about Pokemon, from somebody who is in a lot of other, you know, TCGs, is that there's a lot of different ways to engage in here outside of buying. So being able to either enjoy, you know, live streams like this, or talking with people in the community, or kind of living through certain collectors who have collections that you're aspiring to collect, you know, or you know, obviously get to that level. I think we all do that at certain points. I mean, anytime I see a 98 number 3 Pika, I'm like, this is amazing. But at no point in my mind am I working toward that. I'm just like, I love that this exists, that I get to look at it. So I think that, yeah, it's not necessarily that they're blamed for it, but I think that, yeah, moderating yourself to a point to where it's like, if other parts of your life are suffering because you're overindulging in cards, maybe it's time to look at a different route to interact with the hobby instead of buying. If you're sitting on a bunch of binders, maybe just start reorganizing binders. Maybe start going through bulk and looking at that. Maybe, you know, start looking at grading some stuff maybe eventually, or getting your grading pile together. There's just a lot of different things you have to do to distract yourself to where you're like, okay, these parts of my life are maybe a little bit more stable now. I've got a good foundation. Now I've got disposable income. Because that's my biggest thing that I've preached in almost every stream that I've been in. Not leveraging yourself to buy collectibles is really like the biggest advice I can give anybody. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like 100% disposable income, but make sure like whatever income you're putting in it, it's actual money that's yours, not just the bank's money. Because I know that there's people that, especially in 2020, just went all in, bought at the peak of the hype. You know, even base set boxes and stuff like that, and literally just all that money, just 50% drop, you know, out of nowhere when they thought they were going to actually get something. Sometimes even more than that. So I think it's important to realize, you know, why you're engaging. Are you engaging in a lot of buying because you haven't found another outlet in the hobby to enjoy? Is this something that you aren't in Discord groups? You're not watching YouTube videos. You're not jumping in live chats. You're not, you know, taking time to look at the collection that you have amassed. I think it's important to really do self-reflection when you are engaged in luxury assets like this, and think, why am I doing this? And knowing that why. Just my opinion on that.
Yeah, I think before we go on, I think don't want to miss the super chat. Professor Oak donated $2. He said, "Super chat if you're a terrible Pokemon budgeter." So, a little ironic there, but I think that I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. I think that some people feel like they need to spend money to feel engaged and to feel fulfilled and to feel like they're a part of the community. I think a lot of what we see that people engage with Pokemon and collecting in general, some of the whatnot culture of people are in it for they want to purchase something and get a cool pickup so the chat thinks it's hype, and I think a lot of people do collecting to for the wrong reasons and to show it off, or they don't do it for the wrong reasons, but they think they have to spend money to engage and to be cool and to be seen and to be respected in this hobby. And I don't think that is the case. I think that you can, you know, have a very fulfilling experience and rewarding experience, spending small amounts of money, spending no amount of money, going to collecticons, engaging in the discords and engaging in the live chats and talking with people and commenting and just being involved in the community and making Instagram posts. I think there's a lot of ways that you can be involved in the community spending $0. And I think that there is kind of a push or a false thought that you need to spend money to be engaged and to be respected.
Yeah, and sort of like this is all an investment is often used as a sort of the rationalization for self-destructive things, right? And so I think why I talk about this stuff is because that's what I worry about for like, myself and people who hang out in like the communities that I'm in. That's I don't think people are going on to too many people here are going on to like whatnot or pack breaking channels and like can't control themselves and are opening up too much packs. I mean, there absolutely could be, but I think it's more like, it's so fun hunting. It's so fun finding things and deal. It's like, it's so like, and all of those things are true. And all of those things do very much give you a lot of value. It's just something like, okay, now going forward here, how do you continue to collect? How do you continue to flip and monetize and not get too deep into credit? And for me, like, there are no hard and fast rules to any of this. I've gone onto credit cards before to buy large lots that I felt like were super undervalued and then flipped them. And it ended up being really good financial decision, but it also caused me some stress and some increased sort of mental, right? So like none of this stuff is super black and white, and there are always kind of positives and negatives, to all of it. I know like I am still getting so much joy out of collecting for myself, like as much now as I ever have, like the entire time. I just freaking love it. And what's great for me is like, there's so many different things that I like to collect, and the price points don't know, like, I think for me, like the rarity, the chase, the difficulty to find, the newness, like it's less about how expensive stuff is often and more about that type of thing for me. But everyone has a different way to collect. So like if you enjoy collecting the new thing that people are talking about and to be part of sort of like we're all showing our alt art together and I want to get that new thing that everyone has, I think that there's a way that everything can work for you. Like that like no one needs to collect the same way and enjoy the same thing. And there isn't a right or wrong way to collect as long as it's making you happy and you're really enjoying yourself and you're not being rude, or critical of sort of other people. And I think that that's sort of the collecting stuff. I think where some of the arguments come in and some of maybe the frustration comes in this sort of like, is this a good investment? Are we rationalizing some of this as a good investment? Are we telling people who might have a problem with something that what they're doing is a guaranteed investment? It's like these types of, that's very different than, is this an investment? Is this a good investment? Let's have an interesting discussion about it. Could Pokemon be much larger in the future and all of these things could go up in value and you could have a lot of fun collecting and resell these things in the future? Sure. It's an interesting time. And why I title this 2023 is I think this is what's going on. I think these are the types of things that I imagine people are thinking about. These are the types of things that I think people are trying to figure out in the adult, collecting scene, right? Which is what this video is about. Me myself, I'm picking up. I just finished my like Vivid Voltage Amazing Rare set.
Nice,
super fun.
Nice.
Love those cards, right?
Yeah, one of my things that I wanted to do this year was buy more Pokemon because I've been buying other TCGs primarily, and I just picked up an entire set of the 98, 99 A&A promos, like with the little binder little things. I bought it's been like probably over a year since I've actually picked those up, but a guy had literally the entire set, and I looked at the price and was like, in my brain, I'm thinking a year ago, right? And then I see this, I'm like, wait, this is a steal. And then I'm like, oh wait, it's still a good deal, but it's like, man, this is crazy. This has even popped up, and they are like purely mint. But I think, even just to speak to what you said about, is this a good investment, or like people thinking that, like, I think it's a healthy thing to have. It's a healthy practice to have to talk market dynamics with people. As long as, kind of two things I think align. One, that you understand that everyone is full of S. Just put that in your brain. Like, there are no experts. No one is going to be able to tell you that something is 100% going to do anything. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle, depending on who the influencer is they follow, or they follow content. And they're like, man, they bought like 15 cases of this. This has got to like hit. This has got to happen. And they FOMO into it. I think you have to understand that, like, I want to know people's opinions because I care about those people and I care about what they want to, or what they think about. I don't let that define kind of my thought process and what I'm looking at if you're doing that. And then two, and I'm a big proponent of this, is make your collecting goals concise. So like you said, there's so many things that you want to collect, right? And there's so many things I want to look at. There's stuff I've had to like literally finger on the like buy it now. And I'm like, I have to remove this. I can't do it. Because I'm like, I just wouldn't feel right like spending and buying all these different things at the same time. It's like, this doesn't align with like my tried and true. Like, I need to just stay kind of focused on this and say, okay, I already picked something up this month, or I did 3 or 4 or 5 purchases this month. I'm good. Just being able to know that, like, just because something's a good deal or you really like it, does that mean it's in your collecting goals, or does that just mean something really cool and you'd love to have it? And I think making that concise is important, because you can spread yourself thin for sure.
100%. Make it like, I completely agree with that. You can feel overwhelmed if you're trying to collect too many things at once, or at least I do personally. I like to focus on one goal. I've got my eye on some other things that interest me, but that's how I kind of operate as well. Just like very focused on one. Right now it's the Kamiya Master Set, and that's my focus. And then after I finish that, I think there are several cards that catch my eye that I've wanted to pick up. But I agree with that. What about you, Jake? I feel like, or I guess you could explain it, but you, TCG, Star Wars, do you ever feel stretched too thin that do you ever find the need to more narrow down your collecting goals?
No. I mean, there are times when I feel narrowed down. There are times when I want to buy something that I hold myself back. I mean, that happens all the time. So for sure, it doesn't come in the form of like, I just can't collect anything from this ever. It comes in the form of like, just recently I wanted to make a purchase of these like really cool signature cards that I really like, that are just these really rare and really expensive. And the person just wanted a lot of money, understandably, for them. And, at market basically, or a little above. And I really wanted them, but I knew that it would cause me mental health stress for the next month. So I didn't buy them. Yeah, like, exhibiting self-control like that, I think, is helpful. And I know there are going to be other opportunities. If I never can buy those again, there's going to be other opportunities to buy really cool things too. So I think what me having a lot of things I really enjoy also helps me not need to collect any one thing of those. But for someone else, that might be completely backwards. For someone else, it might be like, I just want to be super into one thing and just doing that. And then when I finish that, maybe I'm satisfied. And it doesn't need to be anyway. It's literally, it's an extremely personal sort of thing that you enjoy, and to Peke's comment about sort of, I think this term expert, who's an expert, who knows what, like, first of all, people can be an expert or have some decent expertise. It's all relative, and it's all about, this person is quite knowledgeable in this area, but you can take the most knowledgeable person ever in an area, and there's still, in something that's a sophisticated, complicated market where there's tons of different things that nobody can predict. It doesn't mean that they, like, you can have it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to predict the future, and certainly cannot get you. I think some people look for more, this whole, like, everything goes up with time nonsense is the exact thing I'm talking about. Like, that, wherever that idea and how that idea has sort of spread through people's minds, and the experts who have sort of implied that, and I think there are plenty of experts who have implied that, who I do think have a lot of expertise on Pokemon. So I don't think it's fair to say these people are not experts on Pokemon, or that's not how I would frame it, or don't have good expertise. It's just that they also are saying things that they can't know to be true. And I do think experts can get caught up in their own sort of guru status and how people talk to them if you're not careful.
And it's also using, with Pokemon, it's like using short-term data points as well, like using statistics or statistical financial data.
Yeah.
Like, hey, remember in this 4-month period, something went up from like 2 years ago. Like this is it. Like it's it can be skewed so much, and just because and I think I remember, I don't know if I read this or maybe I saw it on Pawn Stars actually. I think out of all things, I think Rick was like, just because something's old doesn't mean it's valuable. And I was like, man, that is so true. That is so true. And it's like with cards, it's hard because like in the last couple of years, everything that's been pre X year has been arguably like they've gone up, but that's not indicative of every single product in the
And
entire hobby.
age can hurt the value of something. I'm going to
Yeah.
add to that. Not only does age not necessarily make something more valuable, but there are tons of examples where age makes something less valuable because people cared about it 30 years ago and they don't care about it today.
Stamps.
Right. So, and there's always going to be that possibility in anything. That's honestly true for companies too. If you're investing into companies, one reason you might invest into a specific company is because you think they have a competitive advantage over other companies, right? Maybe in 30 years they won't. Maybe that will slowly die over time, their competitive advantage, for a variety of reasons. Maybe their brand will die. Maybe a new, so there is nothing, gold. Maybe gold is losing some market share right now to Bitcoin and to digital currency. Gold that's been considered like one of the premium stores of value for thousands of years, maybe won't, it's just being really good at what you can know and what you can't know, and trying to really be very clear about that's extremely important and healthy. And I think at the same time, there's another thing that I see going on where it's like nobody knows anything.
That's probably the safest way to do it.
Right? Everyone's an idiot. Everyone's a scammer, and nothing has any value. It's like, right? That's a very immature way to view the world, and is very incorrect, because
but it's the most common. Like people enjoy operating in extremes. They don't enjoy the complexity of having to sort through it and figure it out. That's the unfortunate thing. Like, yeah,
and people don't like nuance. They don't like the gray. They want it to be black or white. Yeah, 100%. And I do think it is a little dangerous or a little immature, like you said, to make it. Sometimes it seems like nobody knows anything. Well, I mean, give yourself a little bit of credit. You spend hundreds of hours researching this stuff. Like, I better know something. Like,
so much. So much.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll be sitting at the computer hovering over a buy it now and listing, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, I need to trust my gut. Like, I spend hundreds of hours every month, like looking at this, analyzing it, listening to every single live stream, looking at thousands of listings. Like, just don't get caught up with analysis paralysis and just like click it. But I think that's a really good point that's not talked about a lot.
I force myself to not buy so much more than I force myself to buy. It almost like feels good to like force myself and not like give into it. So when I do purchase something, I know it's so intentional and it fits like whatever like random mental criteria that I've got. I'm like, this looks good, I'm gonna buy it. And I don't know, I know people are wired differently and all of that, but like I couldn't tell you how many things that I've had, like, again, the finger like an inch from buy it now, or like, making an offer, and I'm like, maybe I'll just make them a ridiculous offer so they'll come back. But I don't even let myself do that, because I know the second I get another offer, I'm gonna be like, cool, like he gave it to me less. It's so hard of a balance to do that. But yeah, Jake, like you said, like it's either like everyone's a scammer, this sucks, or like everything's going up and everybody should buy. You're so spot on with that.
Yeah, it's so strange, and again, it's like, I think that so many people, right, feel the way that I feel roughly, but the messages that tend to get pushed, and it tends to pull people into these types of things. And so I think, bringing back to sort of that collecting thing, like, it's just so, like, it's so important to develop your self-awareness as a human being, be an educated person, educate yourself on what are the options, if you want to, or, I think it also really depends on like the type of collector you want to be. So if you have very expensive goals or a huge amount of goals, you're probably, in order to compete in a way that is responsible, unless you have millions and millions of dollars, is to do those huge amounts of research and get super engaged in the market. Now, I think that like if we did an analysis, if I was Mertz's boss, let's say I hire Mertz as a Pokemon employee, right? And I did an analysis of his sort of investing strategy and flipping strategy, and we looked at how much time he's spending, on each thing, and then how much that's actually turning into profit, right? Like the answer could be, well, a lot of it or some of it is turning into profit. Some of it feels redundant. Some of it isn't. He also probably just really enjoys research and analyzing.
100%. Like I was thinking about this the other day, and a YouTuber made a video of nobody ever talks about the time that you spend on this stuff, and like, that's why investing in sealed is good, because you just click a button, put it in the closet, and you don't spend the time that it takes to research these promos and find these lots but I was thinking about that, and it was a good point, but it started to make me think it was. I enjoy the process. I enjoy like that, all that time that I spent, it's relaxing for me. And sometimes it can be stressful, but like if you're really trying to push something, but I enjoy the process. I love looking at the listings and spending all that time and scanning through pictures and finding that hidden gem, or I love listening to the live streams and devoting all that time to get that knowledge. And I think that is important. Like it's not just a one-to-one, I spent 3 hours. If I'm making less than $20 an hour, it's not worth my time, because if I focus that on, I don't see it as a one-to-one equation. Like there is a lot of value to me in that time, and I really enjoy the process, flipping through stuff, putting things in card savers. Sometimes I even enjoy packing orders, like and getting everything organized and ticket. Like I think that is an important thing to think about as well, and something that I've been thinking about myself.
Yeah, I think one of the things right now, let's just say going into 2023, kind of keeping the theme of collecting this year, I think a lot of the impatient people have left. And I think that people are working to being more patient in their collecting. And if they're not, I think they should, because that really truly is the key takeaway from anyone who's been in this for a good while. And I'm referencing people like yourself, Jake, like Dan, DJ Gigabyte's prime example, Pratt, all those guys. Like it's being able to accept that something isn't going to happen instantly, which is a really, really hard thing to do in just the culture, society, and like how we move in things now. And I think it all really stems back to like the why you're doing it. Because if you understand the why, it's like, why do I want to collect these things? Because I want to sell them later for profit. Okay, cool. If that's the case, put a timeline on it. Hey, look, in a year, I just want to have X amount sold or X amount bought, whatever that looks like. If it's like, I don't really think I'd sell them, I actually really like these, or you're like Mertz, you're like, F the pop, I'm putting this in the coffin, like I don't care. Whatever it may be. Like, know that it's okay if you miss an opportunity, because I guarantee you, and I've only done this for a few years, but like the opportunity will come back around. I promise you. People thought they'd never see another illustrator after the first one surface or second one surface or third one surface. And we saw like 5 or 6 in 2022. Like, it's just being able to be patient and understand that, like, is this a good time for me to buy? Is this a true one of one? Like, I'll never see this again. 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, that's not the case. Sure, if you're talking like, the female trainer #1 card or something like that's a PSA 10, yeah, realistically, you're probably not going to find that card again if you had the chance to even buy it in the first place. But for the overwhelming amount of people in this hobby, your set cards, you'll always have a chance to buy. Like, it's just being patient and understanding, like, you can wait a little bit, and that's okay. You don't have to have it right now. You're not going to be, if you're going to be in this hobby a year from now or 2 years from now, or you don't even have a time period, just take your time collecting. It's more fun to enjoy the process and collect than it is to rush out and buy it all. And then you're like, well, what's next? Because you're always chasing the dragon. Like, you're always trying to get that hit. So anyway, a little bit of a rant, but patience is the big word with that.
Yeah. And if you can, I mean, generally speaking, go to where others are not. You'll get your way better value.
Buy Zelda cards, guys. I'm just kidding.
You'll get better value. I mean, it's like these amazing rares that I'm buying for $1 now. When people were buying them initially, they were like $40, $50, $60, $70, $80 each.
Amazing rares are $1.
Yeah, $1 to $4 raw.
That's crazy.
But I got them for $1 each in a lot that I bought of like a lot of modern stuff from that era, basically. Like everything was priced out. I buy like a large. I tend to wait a few years after an era gets printed a lot, and then I try to buy a really large collection, which fills up like 80 to 90% of all of the cards that I want from that era. And then when I get them in person, the cards that I really like, I tend to buy more of them in singles, and I create like full pages of my favorite ones. And so I do all sorts of things. And then my very favorite, often I like to try to pull myself, and then I put the pack that I pulled the card from in the binder next to the card. Like I have lots of things that I love ways that I love to collect and enjoy collecting. And I try to, but it's just like, I don't know if it's a patience thing or like an impatience thing on people's part, or why the vast majority of people need to be doing the new thing and engage in the new thing all the time. And again, I don't know if it's they want to do it with their friends, or they want to do it with the people who are doing it, or it's like they just have like a short attention span. It's like they've forgotten and all the other stuff now sucks. It's only the new stuff that's good. But hey, for me, as long as you are not giving financial advice that doesn't make any sense, I will never push back on you. If you were saying, I like this card and it's my favorite card in the hobby, you're never going to hear me say you're stupid for thinking that's your favorite card. I mean, it's when I hear those conversations and I see people engaging in that stuff, I'm just like, man, so weird.
Or like, who cares like enough to even like have an opinion?
It's so strange. Like, honestly, it just makes me really excited that you like really enjoy something and like something. And I might think, I wonder how that person came to that conclusion. And I may think I'm maybe a little worried for that person because I'm worried that they're maybe overspending on it, and that they may not like it as much and they may regret it. But like, it's and that's where that investment talk and money talk. It's like, if soon after they talk about something, they then say, how much will it go up to 1,000 next year, or 2,000 or 3,000 next year? That's where I get into more of that, like, yeah, okay. And then when I type in like Pokemon investing, basically every investing video is just like, buy these 5 cards, and it's always the same stuff. And it's just like the same stuff every year. That's where I then become more concerned. But,
well, especially with like, modern sealed is a big one, right? Because, and I'm not saying all modern sealed is treated this way, but like predominantly you're going to see people pumping that, because most people who have a distributor access, like the new set comes out, they have to liquidate inventory. But buying into that, like short-term thinking is not conducive to long-term like gains and long-term enjoyment out of this hobby. It's just not the way to do it. So buying something, being like, when will this hit this? Like, you're in your brain, you've already sold. You are already going to take that L. I guarantee it. You don't know your timeline. You could be like, in a year from now, I'm going to sell this for $1,000. 30 days from then, you're like, I need to like fix my AC. This card's gone. I'm selling it for $400, and I bought it for $700. Whatever it may look like. So yeah, I think collecting wise now is, I think it's better than last year. I don't know how you guys feel. I feel like almost there were so many other, just from my personal opinion, ridiculous takes, ridiculous FOMO, like buy, like it's happening. Prices finally came down, so you should even be buying more. Here's my eBay store. Like, that was what I was really seeing. I do think that that's calmed down a little bit more. And I think the people that are still in this hobby are very, a lot more educated, so much more educated than before. And I think that people are more engaged. And I think there's more content creators, like yourself, that are in here that are a lot more open to having candid conversations about things that, here's candidly what I buy. Here's what I think about this. It's not financial advice. Don't do this. And I think that's more of the more objective takes that we can really get from people, I think, is the most important thing that we can have in this hobby this year, along with being patient. So that's what I would say.
That's how I feel about niche stuff and most vintage stuff. I don't feel that way about ultra modern. It's pretty rare that I run into anyone talking about anything super niche or vintagey or from other hobbies and saying things like, this is a great investment and this is going to go up forever. I don't engage in those takes, where I still see those takes and then lots of people commenting and agreeing on ultra modern stuff. So, I mean, that's what I see. Now, do I think it's quite as bad as last year? No, but it's amazing how it's the same people and the same takes who said like Vivid Voltage and the Vivid, who all bought Vivid Voltage at like 200 to 230, and then said the Rainbow Pikachu is going to be the best card in Sword and Shields. It's the best card ever. It's, it's like, and then that got replaced. But it's like they're right when the thing that they pick, like it's all very random.
Yeah, when you shotgun, you're gonna be right.
These people every week have a new top 5, have a new, and it's like, and some of the like I think a lot of the stuff these guys say like makes sense. Honestly, it's just the level of confidence, and again, I do think they do it because they need to sell and they need to get people to subscribe to their video. Like there's an awkward thing for me to say that, but like like, why subscribe to my video if I can't predict the future type of thing? Why listen to this if I can't predict the future? So I have to sort of make it seem like maybe I can a little bit. I don't know. What do you think, Mertz?
I think people want to be told something. They want to be told what to buy. They want to be told something and not be given a nuanced opinion where they use their own judgment and knowledge to come to their own conclusions. I think people want to be lazy and just say, they want to click on their favorite content creator's video. They want to see the top 5 things. That's what I should buy. And that's what they want. And I don't know if it's a laziness or if it's they're following these people that they admire. But that's kind of my opinion. I think that people are lazy and they don't want to use that brain effort into exactly like Dan says, spoon feed me all the info and tell me why I will make money. Yeah, I think that it's a laziness, but it's also kind of like it's hard to explain, but that's what I see. I think they want to be told that stuff.
Facts.
I think something interesting that it came in the chat a while ago, and people are going back and forth in a few different ways, is talking about like, who is the average collector? Like, what is the average collector spending their money on? How do you define the average collector? And that's something that I've been thinking on a little bit lately as well. And I think it's sometimes when we're deep in the weeds where we are in the Pokenomics Discord and having these nuanced discussions about the finances or the deeper topics, and getting really in the weeds about the cards, we kind of lose sight of who the core of the hobby is. And I myself have struggles defining that. It sometimes I think it's the kids or the people that are ripping modern. That's the average person in the hobby. And sometimes I feel like it is the people that care deeply, and it's the adults who are everybody in this chat. That's the average collector. I'm interested to see what you guys think, who the average collector is, or if it's impossible to define.
And from a market statement, if we see where all the money is, there's a lot of money everywhere. So, I mean, there's a ton of money in vintage stuff. There's a ton of money in trophies. There's a ton of money in there's, now there's when products that there are millions of or a million of are able to get to $300, $400, $500, you can see that clearly there's a lot of people investing, collecting, buying that. There's a lot of, money demand. As far as like, where do I think the collectors are? All over the place. I
cop out.
Yeah, I mean, I think like
politician answer, Jake. Tell us where they are.
I think that, okay, so what are the collectors that I'm seeing?
Average collector.
Yeah.
Every day.
Maybe not even the word.
Maybe
not even the word collector. Like, who is the average person that engages with the hobby?
The average person. All right, let's take an our age. Let's take a mid-20s. Let's take a teen, and let's take a kid, because I think that those are the 4 major areas of the hobby, the 4 major collectors. I think your average adult binder has some that came back around Hidden Fates or 6 months after that. Somewhere in there, maybe Champions Path of Voltage, somewhere in there. They have a maybe 10 graded cards, 5 to 10 graded cards, maybe no graded cards. They have 2 or 3 binders, or maybe 1 to 5 or something, and they have a binder that has a lot of baby shinies, amazing rare Vs, GXs, lots and lots of that type of stuff, lots of evolutions.
This is the average.
This is the average. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The average like adult. Yeah,
Yeah.
is like our age. Then they have like a vintage binder that has like completed sets or near completed sets, or they're working on, or like multiples of a lot of, you know, and then in their modern binder, they have like a few hyper rares, a few secret rares. They've maybe opened 5 to 10 booster boxes and bought, you know, 100 or so singles or something like that, maybe. And then you have, yeah, and so their best cards might be, they might have like, you know, 4 or 5 alt arts worth $70 to $150, and rainbow rares and full arts worth, you know, and I would say their value of their entire of that part of their entire collection is like $1,000. If they were to sell it, maybe like full price, they'd actually get 700. They think it's worth 5,000.
And they're in Burbank, and they're posted about it.
And they spent 8,000 or something. You know, I don't know, 5 to 8,000 opening packs and engaging. And then they have a vintage binder with like, you know, near mint, light play, Wizards of the Coast stuff. Probably not. Maybe 1 or 2 middle era cards kind of randomly mixed in there that they really like, of like cool arts that they like point to and they say, hey, this is really cool. You know, a prime in there, a level X, like not too many, definitely not completed sets of that. Okay, that's your 30 something. Then your 20 something is similar, just less, and a little bit more to the middle gen to modern, and a little bit less on the WotC. Your 15-year-old, very similar to the 25, just less of everything. And your kid has, you know, your average kid hopefully got to open up, you know, one or 2 booster boxes worth, since they've been in the hobby for a couple of years, and they have, you know, some gold cards, maybe a few rainbow cards, and they're all, you know, they're beat up and they're sticky and they're so proud to show you, and it's awesome to look.
I don't know about kids nowadays, man. Mason says he's got 10-year-olds coming there looking for slabs. These guys are sleeving hard.
Sure. You know, and they might have a slab or 2, and all these people may have, you know, 1 to 10 slabs. I think that's your average. That's your average person. And when you think about it from an investment perspective, those are going to be a lot of the people who, like, there's just tons of that product around, sitting around, and you're going to see a ton of those collections up for sale in a few years. You're going to see tons of, just like a few years ago, I was buying them, and now I'm buying the ones from like the even Vivid Voltage now, or like the early Sword and Shield to Sun and Moon collections. I'm buying super cheap. You're going to be able to buy large collection binders filled with alt arts and other sorts of things. So, because that's what the average person has, and what do you guys think? Agree, disagree?
I think you kind of hit it spot on for just like the descriptors of the 30-year-old person. That's kind of a similar collection that I have myself, or a similar experience. I think that, and I see some people in the chat, I think that Rock Pokemon says he sees the average collector as having a lot less than that, and maybe just being engaged and just ripping a few packs or something like that. And Mason chimed in and he said it's interesting for us to talk about this because he sees the average collector every day at a store. So I'd be interested to see what his definition of, but kind of what I was thinking of when I maybe I should have phrased it as more of the average person that engages with Pokemon. And I have trouble understanding that person, maybe not the collector, but like the person who engages and who is buying these modern promos on first release. And I have trouble defining that and understanding who that person is and how they don't get
the CGC 10 for 300 or 400.
I just don't, or who's buying the black label, you know, SV, you know, 001P promo for $5,000, and who is buying the Precious Collector black label, or who is buying these on first release PSA 10s for $150, and they're going to be $70 in 2 weeks. Like,
and definitely,
how is that?
Like, when you ask the question, I'm thinking, when I hear collector, I think of someone who's like really in it, not like, you know, someone who like has opened a couple packs, or like, I mean, it would be interesting to hear Mason. It's like how many people are literally, they buy like, they're sort of just into card collecting and they're like, yeah, I'll open the $4 pack, and they
That's
like,
what I think. That
throw it
like
in
what
there.
Rock said, like so much less than that. Like as you kept naming things, I was like, there's no way that's average. And again, not saying that you're wrong. Like you could be 100% right. My thought is like if you're in your 30s and you're into Pokemon, you probably have a decent amount of stuff. You probably went back and bought some base set. Like you've got some, OG cards that you grew up with, whatever that looks like. If you're in your 20s and you're in Pokemon, you probably have more slabs than anything, I would imagine. You've probably noticed the market. You're a little bit more, into the eBay game, probably on what things like that. There's been, like Post Malone, and like there's been a lot of celebrity and a lot of influencers involved in it. I think Logan Paul changed that for a lot of those people that age too. If you are a teenager, you're probably following suit. You're probably trying to be a whatnot streamer. You probably don't know what to buy. You're probably just buying random stuff. It's raw. It's probably not great condition. You probably don't know condition at that point if you're average. And then if you're a kid, you're probably happy to get like a 3-pack blister. Like even booster boxes for kids, like this may just be like putting my childhood on everyone. I'm like, there was no booster box as a child. Like it was like,
now, but
here's 4 packs, and yeah, I'm sure it is different because stuff's available. But even then, like I go to my local Target, local Walmart, things like that. Like there's barely any Pokemon, and it's still like gone. Like all the loose packs are gone. Maybe like I went to Books a Million the other day, which funny enough, they have the Charizard UPCs out without a price tag, just sitting next to like the kids section in the books. Like there were like 12 of them. I was like, okay, this is how far it's fallen. But they had like that. They had like a couple of Vivid Voltage ETBs, and I think maybe that was it. But like outside of that, like I think a lot of those other ones, like the loose packs, especially, are going to like kids. It's like, hey, can I get a pack of Pokemon cards? Can I get like 3 or 4 of these? I think that would be my idea of what an average, not collector, I would say, just average person engaged in the hobby looks like, based on those age groups.
So, I mean, part of the thing because I think the massive amount of these people have these, just binders, basically all the same binder, just one after another with the exact same cards in it, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact that like so many of them are going to be in good condition, and so many of them people are thinking them as someone investment. And I think so many people overvalue their collections, to be blunt, and don't really understand like exactly what that would sell for. And if you add like all these types of things, like it's just all like it all makes it just extremely hard for this stuff to really go up in a significant way over a long period of time. And a lot of the short movements, and like, oh, this went up $100 this week, this went up $200 this week, is like based on like stonking and people who, it's not real sustainable movement. It's randomness. Moves up 200, moves down 200, moves up 300.
And sometimes with no due diligence at all. Like she'll bid at something, hey, this one sale came up, it's gone up, and then someone else buys because of that sale that's not like authenticated that it's real, and then it just gets pushed.
Yeah, and so
plus you have buyout groups and things like that. I mean, there's just so many. It's hard. It's so hard for me to hear like people like this year talking like investing and like long term. Like most people think that's like 6 months from my experience. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like Pokemon should be treated as a luxury asset. Like it's a very cool thing to do that you can kind of make money on, but like, this is me just personally. Like I have almost a 0% confidence level that like, I don't know, 99.5% of the cards, everything outside of trophies will be worth anything like remotely close to what it is now in like 50, 60 years. Just my personal opinion. I don't know if Pokemon is going to be relevant. It may. I don't see how it could go down, but like 60 years from now, it may all be digital. There may be different types of collectibles. I have no idea. So I just can't bring myself to like, especially like modern sealed ETB collectors or like whatever it is, and just be like, I'm going to hold on to this and store it for 10 years and think that I'm going to make, like, even if you doubled your money, it's like, that's not an investment. That's like, I mean, I guess it kind of is. It's like buying like a dividend or something and like getting paid like 10 years later. Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So it's hard when I hear financial takes on that where people use a lot of the term invest, because it's like, I kind of get it, but the overwhelming majority of the products that are out there are not really true investments. Like, unless you have like a very small niche group of people with a lot of capital that want to buy that in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see a scenario where the trophy cards for some reason go up and become extremely valuable and continue to be extremely valuable. And your rare, unless like grading just becomes like people just think grading's stupid.
Or
That
the
would be-
norm. Or it's weird to have a raw card.
That would be the only scenario where I would see like them be able to like fully separate itself from, low pop, first few generation key cards. Particularly trophy cards that have 1,000 copies, but and as far as like 99.5%, like I know you just threw out a number, but like for me, I think there's a good chance that Pokemon is relevant in 40 to 50 years. What do I mean by a good chance? I don't really know. But I do look at like Star Wars is now celebrating 50 years, Superman, Batman, these things are 70, 80, going on 80, like a lot of like these things take in more money now and have much larger fan bases than ever before. The card values, like everything is way more valuable than before. Now that also can be because like they weren't kept as investments, like things, right? They weren't as much, at least just the general population growth of the world, the population growth in the US. Like there could be plenty of factors where like we're looking at a very different world in 50 to 60 years. And people just like, Peak said, maybe people aren't collecting physical things. Maybe they move digital. Maybe it's not cards. Maybe it's something else. But sure. Like, but it's not ridiculous. It's to push back, to the sort of like, it's a ridiculous thing to believe or think. It's not at all ridiculous, in my opinion. And if you're getting really good prices on things and you have an idea of like what it could really be and you really enjoy it, like, I don't think you're being foolish in that. And I think that there's historical precedence for this and there's decent logic and math behind it. But yes, given everything, given the fact that it's a liquid, it's not paying you dividends, it's theft, damage issues, like again, it's like it has such a high bar to clear. And
right.
Maybe it cleared it 3-4 years ago when a lot of us were like buying, like who were here, we're buying it. But like, does it clear it now that it's 10 times as much? Not for me, but I could be wrong. Like cards that I'm selling right now for $3,000 to $4,000, like WotC PSA 10s, a couple of like doubles that I've recently sold. Maybe those are 50, 60,000 in 40 to 50 years. And like, I made a mistake or something like that. That would be insane. If those cards are 8,000 to 12,000, I would be thrilled at the state of the hobby. And then it would have been a terrible, terrible investment, right? To hold those as a pure investment. So, and I would be thrilled that those things are worth that much and there's not much engagement and interest. But one thing that's interesting to think about, Peak, is like, if the hobby's around long enough, what's more likely? Those things are probably more likely to be more expensive or less expensive than they are to be somewhere in the middle in a lot of ways. Because like, why would they, like, I don't know. It's just such a hard, and I think about this stuff sometimes to think about like, okay, what happened in these other hobbies? How long did it take? Why did they move? What happened? What sort of cultural phenomenons were necessary? Like, and it's like, there's a long list of things. And then we don't know what's the cause, or do you need those exact same things? Or could there be something different that happens? It's just like, it's just very, it's a lot of stuff. But like, I run into people saying like, just having really strong takes one way or the other. And I'm always sort of like, okay, like it's always interesting to hear. And I appreciate people's, perspectives. I think for myself, I put some percentage on it and some realistic chance, which given how much I enjoy this stuff and the fact that like, but again, if this stuff 5X's again in the next 15 to 20 years, I probably will be selling a lot more of it and moving it into other collectibles and, so it's just like I did this time. Like the stuff that made it through with me during this boom, probably a decent amount probably won't make it
They're
through.
not making wave 2. Well, my thing is, I think
so.
they have to be like, I think in order for these to have like true, I guess let's call it like investment properties, I guess, because what you're talking about is almost like, and not timing the market, but it's like, yeah, you're trying to see correlations, you're trying to see parallels, you're trying to see like, experiential learning from these past historical events. Like, what can we somewhat, to a certain degree of accuracy, like predict or maybe look for as a sign of this happening? I think really one of the things that has to happen is that collectibles in general, this isn't even exclusive to Pokemon, maybe cards, I'll say, there has to be, they have to be taken, I guess, more seriously as an asset, in my opinion. Like, I know that one of the things whenever I talked to um, Charlie Herlocker on my stream that I did, was he talked about like businesses like his aren't able to leverage like cards for capital because they're not like, there's no defined market, there's no like, banks aren't playing that game. They're not going to say, cool, here's what you value it at and here's how much money you can use to leverage that as an asset. So I think things like that have to be taken a little bit more seriously in order for these to have like the true, like, in my opinion, like foundations, at least at the beginnings of foundations, to be like true, like, hey, I believe in this as an investment so much, I'm dumping all this money into it, for that to make sense. Um, for me, again, I think cards will be worth more, in the future for sure. But I just could not imagine, like you said, like having something as an investment that I couldn't leverage later, like an asset or say like a stock in a business or like something like that. And I don't want to get into comparing those all, but like when I hear investment, that's what comes to mind is like real estate, bonds, like, things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and something that makes this clearly different than a lot of traditional investments is that there's no underlying business. Like if you have Coca-Cola stock, like Coca-Cola has value and it is a business that is growing and churning a profit. And these are luxury items that don't have that type of value. That's a big difference. But I think that just thinking about like the future and trying to speculate on what these things will do in the future, the thing that makes the most sense to me and like the factor that I can wrap my head around is the increasing buying power of people our age as we get older, 40s into our 50s, into our 60s, into where we really get a solid foothold in our career, get to retirement age, have our highest earning power, have our highest amount of savings. That's the only thing that makes sense to me to even think about in terms of like predicting the long-term trajectory of this stuff. And we obviously can't predict black swan events like the pandemic or big injections of demand because of a new video game that comes out or a VR. Like that stuff is impossible. So when I think about this stuff, the only thing that makes sense to think about is that. And I'd be interested to hear from you, Jake, in coming thinking about other hobbies like Star Wars that have been around for those initial people that got into it when they were kids to reach that age. Have you seen any patterns like that that we could kind of try to take lessons from in Pokemon to see that increase buying power?
Sure. Well, the 1030 thing is something I heard a lot about, right? Which has already happened, which is was my thesis and why I bought so heavily into Pokemon, a few years ago. As far as like going forward, it goes I think it was my last video. I like showed a card and I talked about sort of how I would assess value on this card, right? Like, and the first thing I think about is like, are there going to be enough people? How many people in the world would want this if they knew about it? If they somehow were everyone was able to know about it, how many people would want this for $3,000? Can I try to, and obviously I don't know, but that's a good start because that is the only value this thing has, is if somehow I was able to show everyone in the world, which I can't. So part of why these things become valuable is because they're put in front of people, right? And so that's a hard thing. So the more exposure, so something like, Logan Paul and everyone being in the home and the 30th anniversary, Pokemon Go, like this stuff gave this stuff a ton of exposure. And then a lot of people saw it and said, "Ooh, I want that." They saw the price tag and they said, "Ooh, I want that for that amount of money." And then the price went up because there was only so much of it, right? So when we think about extending that into the future, it's sort of like, well, if tons of people who like, I believe that if most people, let's say like most people who are right now in the hobby who own this $3,000 card I showed in my last video, or $2,500 card I showed, if I think not a lot of those people are going to ever sell that card for less than 2,500 because the vast majority or all of those people who own it can afford it, it's unlikely for them to have some sort of emergency that's going to cause them to sell it. It's unlikely for them to get bored or tired of it. And it's unlikely for them to value something else more in their life than that and then want to sell it and put money into that. And I think that over time, there's going to be more people who want that card who are going to have more money. Then that's a really probably good investment. The issue with that is I have no idea how many people are still going to want that card in 5 to 10 to 15 years. And it's a hard thing. And how many more options they're going to have, or other collectible hobbies, or other expenses in their life. They're going to have kids. They're going to have other things that, but will enough of that be replaced by the other people who have higher and higher incomes, who want them more and more, and multiple generations coming in? That certainly is what happened in comic books. And that certainly is what happened in sports cards. And that's certainly, right now though. But if you went back to the 80s, or like when you go back to the low points, this is the same thing that everyone said, well, if you buy any steel product, it goes up. Yeah, right now, when you're looking at the peak, when you're looking down, but like 6 months or 8 months or a year and a half, whenever it was, when I was buying Chilling Reign for $68 because everyone was saying modern booster boxes are dead and everyone printed too much and all these people lost, bought Viv Voltage at 200 and it came down. There was a time period where like the modern booster box investment was dead narrative was going around in the hobby for like, it was like a month. It just
shows how many of those people like didn't buy though.
It just shows how irrational these people are, and that they don't actually have any, because it's like that would have been the best time ever to buy. Like if you really had that thesis and believed in that, and to Rudy's credit, at least he came on, he's someone who at least actually did buy, at that point, and I, whatever. But it's like, that was the point that I bought, right? That's when I bought everything. Because it was like, well, this is really good value and people seem overly negative. And I think people are being irrational. Okay.
But would you have bought if you didn't like it? If you didn't like the product, would you have bought anyway?
I mean, if I didn't like the product at all,
yeah,
I don't know. Like if I didn't like Pokemon, I wouldn't buy it, or I wasn't engaged in Pokemon.
Let's say a modern booster box,
again,
goes down, good value. It is it checks all those boxes, but you didn't like it. Would you still buy?
At what price? There's a price for everything.
Well, I think you said, because you said they went down. You said, hey, this is good value. I bought into this. So say like that exact scenario, but you didn't like the product. Would you buy?
Well, I don't know what doesn't like mean, but like I liked it at 72, 68. I would not have liked it at 90.
Okay.
I didn't think it was a good enough, or I didn't enjoy it enough to pay $20 extra for it. I didn't buy Evolving Skies at 140 or 180. I wouldn't have. I don't think it's worth that much to me. I don't value it at that. I certainly don't value it at 300. At 95, I valued it and thought it was worth it and a decent buy at that price. Again, everyone has to make their own calculations, but are you being rational and consistent? If you look around, there's a lot of inconsistency and irrationality and panic. And when it goes up, you feel like you're a genius. And when it goes down, you feel like you're an idiot.
That's what I'm getting at.
That's a good sign that you are not actually investing and value investing, that you don't really have convictions and a plan, and you're just sort of responding to prices and pointing to prices as proof of whether you're smart or not. Not good. So whatever. So for anyone who has any experience value investing, they see through that in 2 seconds. Unfortunately, it's not it's not necessarily common in the world in stock investing or anywhere. This way of thinking anymore, and certainly is not common in Pokemon necessarily. But it's why when people push me to like claim or say a price, it's like it's already a weird question, because it's like that isn't the thought process. Like the thought process is like, what do I think the value of this item is, and what do I think other people value it, and what do I think other people will value it? And I tend to buy, if I'm thinking from an investment perspective, I'm buying things when I think the market is undervaluing them. I'm selling things when I think the market is overvaluing them. It's as
And
simple as that.
I think it's something that kind of my point of that is, there's certain people who don't, and unfortunately, they don't really judge it based off, like, somebody would hear like $77 and $90. They're like, it's $12. Like, yeah, I'm going to buy a bunch of it because I love this. And I think that's the people who, that particular, let's say, social media market, and getting all the clicks, like, that's their market, that's who they're making this content for, is go go go, buy buy buy. Or if they go, hey, these dropped a ton, like, don't buy them, they're probably buying because, again, they're value investing, or they're buying things in order to flip them for a profit later. But the people who are kind of following this trend, they're like, oh, nobody likes that, well, I don't want it anymore. Like, it just, it very heavily influenced people, or not, gullible,
Yeah,
I guess is probably the better word. Is that's the scary part with some of the modern plays that we saw last year, is people being talked into whether they liked something
yeah,
or
and
not versus, going into it.
it's insane. It's everywhere. So like I'm a real estate investor now, right? Like I'm like the head strategist basically at this agency that does wealth management and real estate, and it is amazing to me how how to put it, how people are like, I only invest in this type of real estate because this type of real estate makes money and this type of real estate doesn't. If you like, it's the same thing in Pokemon. Sealed product is the best investment. Every time you or anyone writes in a comment section, sealed product is the best investment in Pokemon, you already don't know what you're talking about in a deep way. It's a really harsh reality because this is like 70% probably of the investor community. You like, it's it is it has to do with the price point of everything. So everything, not everything, but most things are investable at a certain price point. Okay. The cheaper, if I am buying, if you don't like offices, but you like multifamily, or you like, it's like, I only want trophy these things, or I only want to buy slum, and make money there. And that's how I make money. One thing is to say, I only have an area of competency in modern booster boxes. And so I only invest in modern booster boxes, not because I think it's always the best investment, but because for me, it's always the best investment because I don't have the time to engage in the rest of the hobby. I'm super knowledgeable about modern sealed. And so I'm good at picking the right ones, and I'm good at picking the right price to go into. That is very rational. It is very hard. So like Warren Buffett will come out and say, not that tech is bad, or that tech companies, there's never a price to invest in tech companies. He'll say, I don't have the area of competency to invest in tech companies. I don't know how to pick when they're undervalued or overvalued. Okay. But he's not thinking tech bad, financials, insurance companies good. That's not what he's thinking. He's thinking, I'm good at knowing when these financial companies, insurance companies, I'm good at Coca-Cola, and I'm good. I could tell when See's candy and, whatever, blah, 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 a million companies investing over there. Like I'm good at assessing that these are undervalued, and I'm not good at assessing when these tech companies are under overvalued. So you out there, you may be really good and competent at like middle era stuff, or really competent in WOTC, or really competent in modern. And you can make a lot of money and be a good investor theoretically in any of those areas. Now, the more you're good at all of it, the better you can pick to move, like, this is the area to be in now. This is the area to be in now. But the danger is, as you spread out, maybe you're not as good at any one individual thing. And this is always the sort of issue. But
you're diversified as well.
Yeah, it was the whole sort of like invest in modern versus invest in steel versus, it's like, people, if you are looking for an answer, you're very likely just a herd follower, and you're not going to like do research, and you're not going to make value assessments, and you're probably going to lose over time. You're going to be part of that. I had that kind of harshy, spicy video, 2 videos ago, where I was like, you're probably part of that 85 to 90% that basically gets eaten up by the social arb investors, the momentum investors, and the value investors. How did I make all this money? It came from someone making mistakes.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
So it's like, it's the reality of the system that we're in. It's the people who don't assess things are giving their money to the people that are assessing things and have competency. So you can sort of just say it's all nonsense and no one has expertise and no one has competency, or you can develop your own area of competency. But here's where the nonsense happens, or the guru stuff happens, right? Gurus claim some sort of superiority or ability over other people. or in every area, like one thing, there's some very, I shouldn't say their names. They're not even in the Pokemon community. Someone like, I'm just going to say it. Someone like Jordan Peterson, okay, has like a guru ego complex, in my opinion. He's a really bright guy who has an area of competency in certain areas. But he thinks now he knows everything about the universe in all areas. And every time he talks about something, to me, he has the air of an expert or something, or like really, really bright guy, really articulate, has some amazing things to say about philosophy and psychology, like super interesting. But like that, I use him as a huge example from outside the Pokemon community to like that. You should be aware of people who don't have enough self-awareness to understand their own limitations and their own mind's limitations. And you out there, like there are people in this chat, you like both of you guys have areas of competency in Pokemon that are superior. You know, Mertz has areas of superiority to both me and Pikachu. Pikachu has areas of superiority to both me and Mertz. I have areas that are superior to both Mertz and Pikachu, right? And it's like understanding your areas of competency and then continuing to develop them and grow them. But it requires those works and engagement that Mertz is doing. Like he's spending those hours engaging in those details. He's actually selling and flipping and doing stuff and figuring out what works and what doesn't work and developing like competency in those areas. This is going to be very blunt, but you watching top 5 investment video after top 5 investment video telling you to invest in the same 5 modern products is not research. You know, it can be fun. Like I don't mean to hate in like a super negative way, but like it can be fun to do that, but you're not gaining anything. Okay. Now, even watching this and these types of discussions, I think that these types of my channel, I think does a really good job of like giving you frameworks and ways to think about it. I will plug my Patreon here where we do go into more detail on like certain analysis and data that we look at, but none of that should in any way be a replacement. If you are buying a card, it is your responsibility to look at the pop reports, to look at the data, to study these other markets and to make that decision. You know, do I think some of these top 5 things to buy now are smart guys who are making good assessments? I do. And I agree with some of the cards they pick, but it's a dangerous, particularly when there's sort of less assessment and when it's just buy the modern product.
Aren't they making these for clicks though? Like, isn't that the primary reason that top 5 videos exist? Like, I don't think that they're so motivated by just, this is such an amazing investment that they go out of their way to make the content for it. I think those are clicks. I think they're clickbait videos. And honestly, like top 5, like cards to buy and invest in. I maybe this is just personally, like, I don't see those on my feed. I don't search them out or anything like that. And maybe there's some merit to them. You can find like some value in those, but I think the majority of those, like top 5 videos, do fantastic on YouTube. Finance videos do fantastic on YouTube. I think that's an algorithm feeding content. I don't think that's coming from someone so motivated for these specific cards that they want to help out the community. Maybe that's me being very pessimistic about it, and I'm fine like admitting it, but that's how I feel about people that make like top 5 investments in Pokemon right now, or like, go buy this card, like this set is going to the moon. Like, it's all clicks. It's all like algorithm, in my opinion.
So I feel
completely agree. Ancient Mew.
To my exact point, he wouldn't. There's so many things that each of us know more than him. This is what I'm talking about. The fact that you have that reaction, I'm just going to be really blunt with you guys. The fact that you guys are having that reaction to this man he's very smart and articulate. And it's the same reaction I see to people have to Warren Buffett and other people. It's why I tell people, like, nobody, like, it's weird. There's a sort of, we live in sort of a cult of personality, sort of strange thing where people think people among us are somehow a lot better. And then everything that they say is seen through those types of lenses. It's very interesting to me. And I use him as a great example because he's someone who, you know, when I listened to some of his early videos, and we don't need to go too much on a tangent on this, but like I was, the way that he articulated, I was I really liked Jung, and, you know, I was a psychology and philosophy double major. So like a lot of the stuff that he's talking about, I had read his book before Jordan Peterson became famous, like Maps of Meaning. Like I was aware of some of these ideas and concepts, and like he's a great intellectual, whatever. I don't need to go bash him, but like, and I don't mean to pick on you, HMU or Peak or like anyone, but it's like, that's sort of my like CD crap. Do you guys get my point? Am I articulating my point clearly enough here?
I think we've diverted a little bit, so I'm kind of lost on it.
My point is
maybe the wrap up.
Like,
what's the point?
Yeah. Well, there's no chance in hell that Peterson could out-debate me in Pokemon or investing in any of these hobbies.
Guys,
right?
Clip it, please. It needs to
right. No, but that is precisely my point, right? Like
your competency, like you, working on your competency. It doesn't mean that someone who can tell you like that it's better if they're not as involved, like, you know, putting in the hours.
Yeah, and for example, like Peterson has made comments about certain populations. I know a lot more about working with certain populations. I've had 10 years as a therapist working with certain populations that he hadn't, and he's said some nonsense about it. I don't need to go into details and go around his stuff. I'm just trying to articulate that even someone who's extremely smart and articulate and seems like they know everything, and at times talks like they know everything, they don't. And you need to do your own research. You should be engaged in these things yourself anyway. It's and within the hobby, I would say the same sort of thing. In the hobby, there are, there are literally people who used to give me a really hard time who have now become very, you know, kind to me and support, you know. In the beginning, when there was a sort of like only certain people can have opinions and share certain opinions and know everything in the hobby. It's these very similar. Well, there are these two toxic ideas that we're trying to articulate. One is the sort of like everyone's a scammer and there's no expertise and no one has any area of expertise or competence or value. Wrong. The other side is that one person can have every area of competence, and that only certain area of competences matter, and that you can't develop your own competence. And part of what like my video was about two things ago was like, you do not need, this is one area where you do not need an extremely high IQ to become very competent in certain things here, which is great. There might be other areas like becoming, you know, some engineering stuff, some like, you know, some intense sort of math stuff in life where like, you know, there might be more benefit to that. But this is an area where, and investing in general, where people who have really good strategies and who have really good self-awareness and self-discipline can make a lot of money and be extremely successful, and compete at a really high level and compete way more effectively than people who are a lot smarter than them or have a lot higher IQs. And that's my point. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any part confusing?
I think in general, I think that, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, but like people, I think the reason why some of these kind of gurus or people that are these opinion leaders are so successful and popular, not only in Pokemon, but in like different communities and different online communities, whatever the case may be, is that people don't want to do the work. They are want to be lazy. They want to be told exactly what to do. They're followers. And I just think that that's always going to be the case. And there's just a certain type of person who needs that type of relationship with the content followers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and people in the chat, when I mentioned Peterson, it was a good one to mention because there are people saying he's a grifter and then people saying he knows everything. A perfect example of the two extremes that I'm talking about.
It's all the extremes.
Zero expertise, complete scam, no knowledge, knows everything, is a god among men, right? It's you know, my honest assessment as someone who is maybe comes from a somewhat of a similar background as Jordan Peterson as a philosophy psychology person, is that he says a lot of really amazing, interesting things on those subjects. and then but has extended it and the seriousness that he takes himself and the weight that he takes himself and the fact that he feels like it's his job or role to like change the world or society. There's some things there. There's some concerning guru-esque things. And I am very against guru vibes. And I don't like, honestly, I don't like how little people think of themselves. I think that part of why people look for gurus is they underestimate their own ability, and they underestimate their own intelligence, and they underestimate their ability to grow and develop their own areas of actual competence that will actually support themselves and their own agency in life. And instead they look for shortcuts by, well, this guy has it all figured out, I'm going to listen to him and repeat what he does. That'll solve everything. So it's a, but again, a lot of what he says and other really smart people say, they have great expertise and command on a lot of really amazing ideas that can improve your life. It's this weird sort of thing where people go to like extremes often.
So do you think that we have like gurus like that in the Pokemon space today? Like actual, like,
yeah,
that are affecting like masses of people?
Yeah.
Because I don't see that personally. I really don't. I mean, you don't have to name. I'm not asking you to name names or anything. I don't follow those people. I guess that even the algorithm doesn't spit them out at me. Most people that I'm following, and I use Instagram as probably a better example versus YouTube, because I think there's more of a user base, that's putting out content on Instagram. And I think that most, if not almost all, the people that I follow or on the feed that I see or anything like that are people that are really just sharing like their actual. I mean, there's a few people that flex hard, but I've never seen anybody try and put out like, we should be buying this. Here's what this is. I don't see any of that. So this is more of an educational thing for me, because I don't see near the extreme that's being described as far as like somebody who's really like moving that amount of people that are in the hobby. I could be wrong. I could just be completely oblivious to it. Sorry, I just read Rock's
I mean,
comment.
I guess I'll second that. Like I don't see it a ton either, but I feel like Jake's got a couple.
Rock Pokemon, you're wrong for that, man. I busted out laughing reading that.
Wait, so you're asking, do I see people who are trying to be gurus or talking in a way that's guru-ish in the hobby, or have I seen that in the past?
I would say in the past there's definitely been that, but I'm saying like, let's say latter half of 2022 going into 2023, are you seeing even people who may have done that in the past? Like, are you seeing that type of content prevalent in the hobby right now? Because I don't see that.
I see, I'll jump in here real quick. Legend of Luke makes a good point, and this is how I see it. Rev is not a guru, he's an entertainer. That's kind of how I feel. And a lot of the people who kind of influence markets, which I'm sure he does. He has, almost 2 million subscribers. Like, if he opens up something and pumps it up on, like, it's going to have some type of effect. But like, I don't know that anybody is out there like saying I don't know. Maybe I'm just not seeing it.
I mean,
go ahead, Jake.
I think it could only exist in the financial YouTuber space. Like, none of the entertainment ones I don't think are guruing. I think that there's some guruing. There can be some guruing in the virtue signaling drama space at times, and there can be some guruing in the financial space. But again, in every internet community, in every conversation, everywhere I've been in my entire life, I felt that way about. In every job I've had, there's probably someone I worked with somewhere in the company, somewhere that I felt there was some element of like, and I think fundamentally it comes from insecurity, and that people there's a sort of like, people look for a father figure because they look for someone to tell them what to do and who to be. And they find comfort in that. And I don't want to shame that. I think that there's a lot right about that. And there's a lot that I empathize and understand with that. I also want, and I think we all do, really amazing people in our lives who can help us and heal us and teach us great things that inform and change our lives. But I think that insecurity can be used at times and abused for personal gain. And at times, I think that the people who are the guru, they are buying into it as much as the person who is watching them and consuming everything.
They believe their own BS, for sure.
Yeah.
That's like classic like
yeah, and it becomes a sort of
personality
like the
trait.
guru needs the guri or whatever.
The Kuvri.
The
Yeah,
Guri sounds
and
like
the
a new
guri
Gen
needs
9
the guru.
Pokemon Guri.
No one can yuck their yum. They need their
It's a
yums to
sort of
match their
very
yum.
toxic
Yeah.
relationship, and then usually the guru eventually knocks the guru off their pedestal and then moves on to another guru. That's what I tend to see. It's like you say this person's incredible and amazing, and then next month they're terrible and horrible, and then but someone else is incredible and amazing. If you notice that pattern in yourself, something I would reflect on. I think building up your own areas of competency and your own skill set is the most important thing in life. It is not following or mimicking other people's ideology or financial. And I think that a lot of life these days, there's a lot of this where I think that there's a lot of areas where I think, it's like if you want to be good at something, listening to experts is an excellent place to start, but then like practicing it, finding your own niche in it, finding your own sort of way to make it your own thing, is how you will develop some very real competencies that will serve you in your life and that will give you a sense of integrity and satisfaction in yourself. And you won't sort of be at risk for these types of people and these types of things as much, is what I would say.
I think a good thing about collectibles and the thing that we love so much and that we do that lends itself to being able to build these types of competencies is that knowledge is king in this type of community, and you can really build like true expertise in competencies that will allow you to have a significant edge just by the amount of knowledge that you gain in the time that you spend. Whereas if you try to dive into other types of markets like traditional stocks or investing, you not only have to have the knowledge, but you have to have a large amount of capital to really like have an effect and like to really move the way that you can do with a small amount of startup capital in this. So I think that that is something that is really cool about collectibles and Pokemon and trading cards, is that you can have nothing and you can devote your time and really turn that into a large asset, and if you really, really want it and spend that time. I think that that's something that separates collectibles that I love about it.
I think in our specific space, one of the biggest things that can I guess help not fall into the trap that is like getting so honed in on someone that you consider like, say, a guru or someone who knows everything about it. I would say just actually engaging, having a two-way conversation with different people in the hobby, whether they are content creators or not, and being able to get information and share ideas and being able to exchange a lot of things that you've learned while you're in the hobby. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many people that I've talked to that are not content creators that have just insane collections. They've achieved so many goals. They have, Jake brought up revenue streams. These are the real people. I won't say real people. The real business minds in this hobby are not content creators. Just to throw that out there to everybody, like TCA is kind of a asterisk in that, but like some of the overwhelming amount of money in the hobby that I've seen that gets exchanged and things like that are from people that do not create content when it comes to like YouTube and things like that. They're not out here trying to tell people what to do. They're just moving in the background and they're just making plays and doing things like that. So there are so many people that you can follow. And one thing I absolutely love about this community is no matter how like famous or follower count, or anything like that, like people will engage with you. I'll use like Mr. Fuji for an example, like amazing guy, super humble, one of my favorite people I've ever like spoken to and dealt with in this hobby. And people like that, like you can just get so much information and gather so much insight into either the market or what people are looking at or why something is valuable is probably the most common thing. It just comes in a community. I mean, that's really, I guess what I'm getting at is being able to have a community like this one is so rare. You look at like stocks, Bert, you brought that up. Look at GameStop, like look at all the shills for that. Like there's so many varying opinions of extremes, as Jake brought up earlier, and things like stocks and things like that. Collectibles, it seems like you can find yourself a very, tight knit, like solid circle of a community in this space. And I say that just take advantage of that, have a conversation, put your voice out there, even if you don't know anything. That's what I would recommend. I mean, even myself, just to even give like a little bit of a story. Like I remember when Dan, like I stumbled upon his like video when he quit his job. Like he was like, I quit my job to do Pokemon. It was just Jake. I actually watched one of your videos like years ago. That was like when I first got in. It was like Pratt, you, and Gigabyte. That was the only people that I watched. And Dan's video came up as recommended. And I watched it, and then I bought some stuff from Dan, like some Masaki promos or something. That I emailed him and was like, "Hey, I follow like this guy named Scott Pratt. He does a lot of like Pokemon stuff." Like I was trying to explain Scott Pratt to Dan, but that's how our like conversation, our relationship started. Right? I had no idea that Dan had been in it for like 6 or 7 years at that point. So just being able to put yourself out there and like have these conversations will help you grow as a person, and then also realize that there's a lot of PokeTubers and a lot of Pokemon people and a lot of people in the space, but like it's a smaller world than you imagine. Like you can really learn a lot of things from the people that are involved, and they will communicate with you, which is great. So that's what I would say with that. If you're only ingesting one way, you're not really going to grow. You need to be able to like put yourself out there and actually, find out you're wrong, or maybe bring some insight to yourself. I don't know. And not in a bad way, just like it just helps yourself to have like differing opinions.
I think that's important. 100%. I think that Gump Brave had a good comment. One great thing about this hobby is that it inspires people to be competitive, but isn't necessarily adversarial. Interesting. Mason Berry just said, "My sister's awesome." Watch your mouth. I'm kidding.
What?
I think
the chat, by the way, Jake, I don't know if you've been following it. It's been like amazing, by the way. Shout out all of you guys. You guys have been cracking me up this entire stream, like with some of the stuff that you've been saying. So
got a lot of legends in the chat. Chavals, Pokey Smoke Swami, Mason. Love it.
So Jake, here's a question. What are you collecting in 2023? Do you have any goals that you hope to achieve by the end of this year? Anything you're chasing that you want to share?
I'm grading a lot of the first ever Star Wars cards from some sets that I think are really cool. Pokemon wise, I'm working on some Batman sets. I'm working on a few Superman, some Disney stuff. I'm working on some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. I'm working on a little bit of Magic stuff. In the Pokemon world, I am filling in a few WotC things, a few middle era stuff. I've been getting into like some full art, like black and white into X and Y, working on some of that Sun and Moon stuff. Buying cards just like super cheap now. Like we're talking like $1, $2, $3 cards that I just think are really cool looking cards from boxes that are, $300, $400, $500, and you'd pull it in one in every 25, 30 boxes, things like that just like feel like those are not investments. It just feels like at these levels, it's like I'm getting like some good value for what this is. And like, I feel comfortable, paying those prices, and I'm able to create binders. I'm always on the hunt for some trophy stuff.
Did you see Gigabyte's video on, he had that 06 finalist, I think, that he was going over? So he finished the Black Star promo.
I saw a picture of a finalist card he showed that I think was the 10. But is there a different video?
Or no, it was the 10, right? It wasn't the 06.
So.
It was the 10.
I happened to see it on Instagram. I haven't seen the video, but I saw him show the video of the 10. I've never seen the 10 before, so in a finalist. So he has one of them. Oh, no, I don't. That's not true. I actually did, and I actually had an opportunity to buy it for $1,500, and I didn't. So, yeah.
Sorry, my chest just felt like it had a chest buster in it there for a second.
Yeah.
What year was this? Was this 2016? Like
this was like after Logan Paul got into the hobby around then.
Well, what is that card? I have no idea about that card. What would that card be going worth now? Like,
so I bought another finalist and another champion around that time for around that price.
Your 08, I think, is what you have a finalist in, right?
Yeah.
So Mertz, a 2010 finalist is worth more than 1,500. There's probably not any sales for it because there's how many of those are made in 2010? I don't know if that's when they changed over, and that was pre-champion, right?
Yes, that would have been the last year before the champion. And it's probably, I would say they're probably, I thought DJ Gigabyte said that there were like 12 or something, which
Yeah, he said he said only 12 sets can be complete. That there's only 12 in existence.
That math's coming for. I would say they're 24 or 48, depending on how much they gave out that year. Definitely 24. I don't know where he's getting the 12. I'm not sure. This is everyone like, and Gigabyte was at that event. I'm sure.
I was just saying, I trust his numbers on face value because the guy is so ingrained.
But again,
that goes to what Jake said. Like,
okay, but
he's a guru.
Who we should trust tell me different things about different years. So people say things that are not, they don't know. Even really smart people who are super engaged and into stuff, or they think they know because they heard from someone who they really trust, and then that person didn't really know. This is rampant. This is why whatever. So that's why I always say 12, 24, 48. And there are reasons why it would be those three numbers would be likely why. Anyway, if there was a chance, whatever. Now, is it possible there's only 12? Sure. The way there'd be 12 would be it was only, if for some reason it was only it was in video games that year, let's say, and it was only the card game. So that would be six different, what's it called? What's the word? 6 different groups, 6 different levels.
Age groups.
Age groups. Yeah. What's the word? I can't remember the word, but whatever. 6 different groups. And then the finalists were given to the first place and the second place. So it would be 2 given out for each of those. 6 times 2 would be 12. There are lots of years where they gave 2 out. Not lots. I've heard they've given 2 out before, but maybe never of the finalists, only of the lower ones. Again, it's like whatever. They've
definitely done that. They're this is getting into like my favorite niche.
Extremely rare card. What is that card worth? Anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000.
How is there that big of a range?
Because there's no comps. Welcome to World's Cards.
And that's what finalists have sold for.
See, this is a rabbit hole that I have not gone down yet. I have no idea about World's Cards. It's just I just don't. I don't. Not that I don't like them or think they have value. What you guys are talking about right now, no idea.
2000 is an interesting year.
I think that particular year, it would not go for 5. I mean, I think even in an auction, I think that card could go for
3,500. 8 to 9 graded or raw?
8 to 9,000 raw. Is it graded? What? People who are paying huge premiums for graded worlds, whatever.
Tens?
That's a whole other thing. That's a whole
tens. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like there are 14 of these in the world. What's the difference between a 7 and a 10? I don't know. It doesn't. I don't get it.
It's a 10. It's a 10.
This is where I don't get, like, if you have something that's insanely rare and it looks basically perfect, what's the difference if there's a tiny bit of whitening?
It's the other form of rarity. It's conditional rarity with card rarity put together, and it's like the perfect combo, which I think.
But the conditional rarity doesn't make it much rarer.
How?
It's already insanely rare.
If it's the only 10, maybe the rest are
only 10, and the others are all like 6s and 7s, maybe. Yeah. But if it's like they're all basically 10s and 9s. I don't know. It just it doesn't.
Are you saying there's less of a premium for a 10? The more rarities, like absolute rarity,
particularly if they're all like people who pay like a huge premium for the Master Scroll 10 or something like that, like it's these types of things that just like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, whereas like for the Tropical Wind, I get it because there's 800 of those cards, and the reason that card is so valuable is because of the history and the story of that card, and that it was given to kids, and probably most of them were like not kept in good condition. Like that's very different than there's 12 of a card, and like just owning it's insane as long as it's good looking. Like now it's good looking, its aesthetic appeal is like vital, and obviously the grade has to do with that. So like you can have a bad looking, there's some that like are quite off center that might get an 8. If you're paying up for like a really well centered, really good looking one, and you're paying this prices, that I totally get. But all this stuff is extremely subjective, and there's no, again, this is not. Neither Pikachu and I have some claim to what should be valuable or what shouldn't. They're just opinions. But
we just like to disagree in public about conditional rarity when it comes, or just in World's Cards in general. We go different in those because 05, for example, like Rusty's. To give you an idea, Mertz. So Rusty sold. Did he sell or buy? I think he bought.
He
Maybe
bought a
so. No,
full
he
set.
he bought a full set for just a ridiculously good deal, in my opinion.
It was an
Based
auction.
on his return, based
Anyone could
on
have
his
bought it.
return though, he did well.
He bought it in auction for around 25,000. He got the whole set, and then he sold the finalist for
Finalist.
50.
50
Sounds
grand.
like a pretty good deal for me. To me,
It was a CGC. Was it a 9.5 or
I think it was a 9.
It was a PSA 9.
I thought it was CGC.
No, he graded CGC in all his.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't grade him PSA. He
Oh,
went
they
all
came
CGC.
raw. That's right.
Yeah, it was CGC.
PSA 9. Yeah, but that was a sort of one-off where a guy who just had been looking for that card forever, who I guess somehow missed the auction, was just like willing to pay that price. Like, I can't imagine the next person would have even paid 25, to be complete, if I'm being completely blunt. But it is what it is, you know. But there could be. I mean, these things are all opinions. Like, I don't know that for a fact. People could pay anything they want for these. They're extremely rare. So, you know, I before anyone liked these, I was the biggest proponent of these in the hobby. So it's not like so whatever. But
And I have noticed with those, they listing wise, there's a lot more available of later years. Later years meaning pretty much anything from like 08 to now. Prices are actually fairly high, like as far as listings. Not in like 2019, or what is it, 2020? I guess 2022 still pops up, but like, and I'm talking regular copies as well, just kind of throwing it all in there. But prices right now, people are not wanting to sell those for like low prices at all. So, and I'll kind of end on that, but Mert's like, yeah, $1,500 for a finalist card, and really any year is an insane like value, in my opinion. Like it doesn't, like, you will not buy a finalist worlds card for $1,500 now. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Oh, definitely not.
So
the finalist worlds cards that have come up in auction, or have sold kind of low privately that I know of, were in some of the Champions Festival ones, which are worth a lot less generally. Somewhat rationally. I think it's very rational because there's the champion stamp that goes over it, but there's also like the fact that the champions sell less for the finalists makes absolutely no sense. Whatever, that's a whole nother thing. They're twice as rare.
Wait, the fact that the champion sells less for the finalist doesn't?
Because they're newer.
They changed the stamp they added a champion stamp, I guess, in 2011 or 2012.
And I don't like talk. I should never say these things because I just screw myself over and over and over again. The more I talk on videos, the more I screw myself every time I talk about anything. But it's whatever. But yeah. So the newer finalist ones, I've seen them go as low as 2,500, but not in good in a PSA 7 condition. And the fact that you could get like a mint one, for 1,500 not that long ago, of like a much more desirable year where there wasn't a champion stamp, those would go in raw condition right now. If you had like a light play one, if you threw one up in auction, I think that card would go for 8,000-9,000, 7,000-9,000, unless you had a Rusty situation. And you easily could have two people who need that last one, that one's never come up, and then it goes 25,000. Like that's what's crazy about those merts, is when you have cards that there's only, you can see what happened with the snap, with the snap Gyarados or whatever. These cards that just like someone's missing one, and no one knows if another's going to come up. People have a lot of money; they're willing to pay a lot. Could be an example of that. The 2005 that Rusty sold, because it's the first year or second year that they had that finalist stamp, and
first it's ever been sold like publicly on eBay, at least.
Yeah, but a lot of those have never sold, right? I mean, I think so. I think people pay a premium for those. Listen, do I think 50,000 for that is like way overpriced of what I think they should be relative to the rest of the hobby? Probably not. I mean, it's a lot of money though. I don't know, for a stamp. We
had this conversation, and I think it was you and Dan both were like, no, like not even close.
Dan doesn't think these should be worth $2,000.
No, but he'll buy Champions Festivals. But whatever.
50K for
I don't know.
I don't know. like to have that go for the, I just don't understand it. I know you guys are super passionate about it. I'm not a big World's stamp guy, but like to have it go for the same amount as like a snap card. It's just the thing that does it for me is that goes against it for me is that there are so many of similar looking cards from each different year that it makes it lose its luster kind of for me.
Just having the stamp, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
the
just-
counter argument to that would be like, why does anyone like first edition stamps? Why does anyone
Same
like?
art.
Yeah, why does anyone like rigid, like in sports people pay, or in comics people pay 26 million or 2.6 million dollars for the original cover, but a reprinted cover that looks exactly the same? You know, it's sort of like that is the exact card merits that was given to the person who won it.
It does, fair point. It does have
exact card. You know, not a copy, not something else. If you care about that stuff, you'll care about it. If you don't, you won't. Is it all ridiculous? For sure. You can get crazy with a lot of things. And why I just always push back is like, you're already crazy. Why not be crazy for this? You know.
Well, here's the thing too. You brought up snap cards. There are less 05 finalist cards than snap cards by like a decent size margin, because they got 20 of each one of the snaps, if I'm not mistaken. So with the 05 finalists, I mean, what are they? 6?
No.
Maybe? I don't know, or more than that, 12?
Couldn't be 6.
I can't remember how many age divisions.
Could be 12.
Yeah. Like total printed.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you know,
that's hard information. Like that's one I always have to reference back to see how many were there. Because like even 04, they had a semifinalist that the Cat's Meowth. I forget her exact name, Catherine something, but I remember talking to her about this because she had a PSA 9 quarterfinalist 04 that she threw up in eBay. And I think that sold for 12 grand. 10 or 12. And that was mid last year. So like not in the beginning of the boom or like anything like that. It was just, hey, there's one for sale. And she took it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they to me they are definitely a piece of history. Like if you're a fan of those tournaments and of like the Pokemon, like to me it's certainly a piece of history. You don't have to salt them. It's how I felt the entire way. Again, you know, I collect what makes sense to me. I don't really care. Like, you know, other people were saying that to me. I was just sort of like, when you buy this and you hold this, you feel like you own a piece of history. It feels unlike when you actually own it. It feels unlike any set card you'll ever buy. You know, and I do think this is something I really encourage people to think about. If you have not bought something and engaged with something, be careful having a strong opinion on it, particularly if you are like really trying to be an effective like investor engaged. Like sometimes owning something and experiencing it and getting engaged in it will teach you, you'll realize the value that you didn't realize before. Now, other times you'll get it and you'll say, this is nonsense. And I was right the whole time. And it was just sort of a not necessarily manipulation, but I was just buying this off of someone else's sort of opinions. That's good information too, you know, but I've had things change for me. So for example, like I didn't really like autographed cards in some of these other hobbies that I collected before. Now I do. And when I started getting them and owning them and holding them, I started really appreciating them, enjoying them. Before I did, I thought it was weird.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. That's funny.
Yeah, just one example. And that's happened to me in Pokemon too, with eras and things that I thought I wouldn't like as much. And then when I got it in person, like I felt differently.
I think that's a good point to like keep an open mind. Yeah. It's an important thing to do. Like when I first got in, I only cared about WotC. Like most people who first get in, it's just WotC. And then I saw, you know, EX era and had no interest in it whatsoever, would just scroll past listings. And now I just picked up a binder with a lot of these little guys in there, and I'm loving these. And I just love the stamps, and I've kind of got sucked into the EX era. So.
Stamps. No,
yeah.
Wait, you said stamp? No.
I'm a hypocrite.
I was actually, here's a nice hot take with that. I felt that way about Grand Party. I loved Grand Party. And then I bought my first PSA 9 Grand Party, and I was like,
oh,
not that cool.
Grand Party stinks. I'm sorry.
I had it, and I was like,
for years,
I'm bored.
Said that. This is the first opportunity I've ever gotten to say that. For years, I heard SM Pratt and Gary tell me it's like the best
pushing the parties,
and it's the most beautiful. And I literally was like, looking at this thing, and I'm like, What do they see?
Exactly what you're saying. No,
What's the
exactly
history
what you're saying.
behind Grand Party?
And
I
there's
don't
nothing
know.
interesting to me about the history, particularly. There's a ton of them out there. Like
there's a lot of grand parties.
It
a
just
lot of grand
don't get it.
parties.
But again, if you love it, great. But own it. It's like it's interesting. It's sort of like just be careful, like listening to people. Now the problem with owning some of the stuff is it freaking costs you a ton.
But what you said is you were like if you're like when you get something like you may change your mind. I was like that is so like exactly what it was. Because I loved looking at Grand Party. I was like this is so cool.
Yeah.
And there's something different about looking at photos, high res scans of cards, and then like actually holding them and taking a look at them. And that was me with Grand Party. And I don't even think I've ever said that. And I'm like looking at them like I will never buy a Grand Party again. Not because I hate the card. I just have no interest in it.
I like the trophy symbol at the bottom of Grand Party. The only to me, the cool thing about that card is that it has like the same symbol as like the trophy Kangaskhan, and just like very few cards have that symbol.
But look at the difference in those cards. Like I would all day take a trophy Kang, like not even price wise, like literally just if they were the exact same price, Trophy Kang's story is so much cooler. Like so much cooler, beyond cool. But that's funny. He said Grand Party stinks. That's fine. I've never heard you say that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, and again, it's like it was just one of these things that like I was always surprised. Like, whereas for me, like the now there's a lot more of these, so I get, but like whereas like the Shining Mew, like the Koro Shining Mew, gorgeous card, like just phenomenal card.
I still think the Mew 7,000 point like EX promo is better art in my opinion. I think that's the best Mew art in the hobby.
The 05 where it's Mew's kind of floating in the background. I love that card, and also the 04.
Or no, this is the 03, 2003.
03, you're right.
Floating with the rocks.
Like I love that one.
I think that card's overrated. I only have one left.
What? No, only have. Listen to
that. Is a beautiful card.
I've only got one left.
It may not be worth those at one point.
It may not be worth 6K, but like it's a gorgeous card.
10 of those have gone through me over the years, but I was hoarding them before the prices went up. It was only when, because the play promos to me were some of the best cards in the hobby. I bought tons. Like I had multiple complete sets of all of those things. Not the gold stars, obviously, and not obviously, but let me make it obvious. I did not have multiple Umbreons and Espeon gold, those cards that are now selling for $75,000.
That I don't understand, but I agree with the play promos.
I don't understand why they sell so much. That's a whole nother. We don't want to get into, there's tons of opinions. And again, these are opinions.
Yeah, I love the play promos. I love the 04 Mew, the Greenhouse Mew. Beautiful card as well.
Yeah.
Best Mew in the hobby right here, guys.
Didn't you get that in Denver? You got that in Denver, right?
That's not even my favorite play promo Mew.
What's your favorite? It's the 04 one, right?
Jake, no.
I like the other one. I like the one in the garden better.
There you go. Don't do this to yourself. Look at that. Neo Mew.
Listen, it's a great card. Don't get me wrong. Mew is great, and it's a great card.
I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate it. You're just wrong, and it's okay. It's no worries. Sometimes we have terrible takes. No, I love that Mew. That is my all-time favorite Mew art ever. More than the Koro Mew for sure. What do you think between those two?
I don't like the Koro Mew.
Koro is awesome. It's an awesome art.
Every time I see it and people post about it, it's just kind of for me. I don't know.
It reminds me of like total opinion. Mew, like flying around, like kind of the sparkles and stuff. Like it reminds me of like just a classic looking Mew, but that one is like something about rocks floating behind it makes it actually seem badass to me.
I think it's just I'm a shining Pokemon hater. Like I don't love. I don't know, the weird celebrations blue Mew. I just think it looks goofy and dumb.
Mertz is like, give me the half art hollows. What are you kids doing nowadays?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm working on I've got some like Dragon Ball Z stuff to collect. There's always fun things. I'm bouncing around, buying, selling. If I sell a decent amount of Collecticon, I definitely got some things on my my watch list, my to buy list that I'm looking to buy. I also have more cards to grade that is expensive, so I gotta I love it. It's like I'm running a little hobby business. It's so fun. I've got all these I'm managing, these hundreds of thousands of cards, and it's just like this really fun, awesome game for me. And
it is fun. It's a fun process. So you've got the grading pile, and you're like, the process is fun. And I think that we hear that a lot with like athletes, like the great athlete, not comparing ourselves to athletes at all, but like they love the process. And I think that it's important, to be successful in anything in your life. But to love the process of buying, selling, looking and organizing and flipping through binders and reshuffling things. I think that that's important.
So it's about, we've been going for about 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm down to go for maybe, you do like 20, 30 more minutes. If you guys are still up for it, then I think I will need to call it. Maybe we'll do some questions or something. How you guys doing?
I'm good, man. I'm wide awake.
I'm ready to go. Chat questions.
I am wide awake as well, but I have, I went on this business trip this week and I just worked way too much. And,
Where'd you go? Where'd you go?
Michigan, to look at some properties. And then I have tomorrow morning, I have my girlfriend is doing a Torah reading that I'm gonna go to, and then in the afternoon I have my trade night thing all day, and then the next day we're doing the Zoom, the monthly Patreon Zoom.
Jeez, you got a lot going on.
And then after that, yeah. So it's pretty much 7-day work weeks. These days are pretty full stuff. So I've been trying to take better care of myself by not like spending as much time on these live streams as I used to.
Sleep is for mortals. So
we've
got at least another 4 hours.
All right.
For sure.
So guys, any questions?
They've had a few dropping for.
Got a lot of meme questions. When will Moonbryon go up? Kai bought 70 of them, so he wants to know that every day.
Forever. Never enough, never down, never punished, always up.
Gold Stars is on the
B Purple Poker said any thoughts?
Any thoughts on what?
That on Gold Stars, the Gold Star market.
Thoughts on the Gold Star market?
I'm not an expert at all in the Gold Star market. Never owned them, never tried to buy them. No idea.
Let me see where I'm gonna look it up right now on eBay to see last sold, and then I'll be able to tell you exactly where it's at.
I follow the dogs because they're a saved search on my eBay, but I don't really follow like solds or anything like that. Gold Stars have never really been that interesting to me. They were as a kid when I was a kid, and like that was like something you could pull, but like I never, as an adult, like getting back into this, I've never chased Gold Stars.
You remember Gold Stars as a kid? I don't, and we're a similar, if not the same age. I have no recollection of Gold Stars being.
Yeah, I remember the which one was it? I don't remember the dogs. I remember which one was it?
What was the first Gold Star?
So prices seem pretty solid.
There's one I'm trying to think of. I do remember the Mewtwo. I don't remember the Charizard. Or no, those are Shining, not Gold Star. My bad.
Yeah.
What cards are you talking? There's a Mewtwo and
there is a Mewtwo Gold Star.
So maybe the Mewtwo is the one I'm remembering. I'm trying to find photos.
I just don't. I think that was just after I got out. What were you saying, Jake?
I'm just looking at the prices. Yeah. So like, what are my thoughts on the market? So they're a decent amount of soldier. I mean, they've always sold very well for me. I've always had a lot of offers, interest. It's always been easier for me to sell Gold Stars when I've sold them. I have not sold a lot of them. I really, really like Gold Stars, but again, very personal. It's one of the things that when I came back in the hobby, I had never heard about, that when I saw, I was like, that's so cool that they have something rare. And it just like, what is this Gold Star thing? And that people are talking about. And then, the arts I think are good. Like, they're not like, like, oh my God, like, holy crap. But like, I think they're very good looking cards. It's cool that they like burst out of the borders for the first time. I love the history. I love the pull rate. I love the scarcity. I love the rarity. I love the amount. You know, it's a low printed booster box era. Like there's just a lot of stuff there that's like always going to be fun to chase and engage in. I think for set collectors, they offer one of the best things to chase. They're definitely something I would look at if you're not familiar with them. But like if you come away with Pikachu's opinion, you shouldn't buy them because they're very expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
price of entry is too much for me. I like to look at
Yeah.
them when they're posted, but nothing that I
I
can
hear you.
justify $1,200-$1,500 or whatever they're running for now.
The thing I like about them is the rarity tier for set cards. I like that extra rarity tier.
Yep.
I'm looking at questions. We're trying to find some.
Justin says he's thinking of doing a large trade with cash for a bunch of Charizard, Skyridge, Gold Star, Expedition, mid play, first edition base.
Everyone knows about gold, so it's just more about obscure. You have to ask some questions.
I would love to, Mason.
Do you want me to start a listing obscure things? I have a lot of.
I was going to say, chat, like just for me, Mertz may be different than this. I know Jake knows about it, but the more obscure Japanese promos I'm into.
No, I'm not just Pokemon. I'm going to start in the 1890s, and I'm going to name one obscure. I'm going to name one obscure thing from every year.
I love it. I've got a sick patch of Buzz Aldrin from 1969.
I know way more obscure things than I know things that other people would know. Probably.
I just bought my first weird, obscure, different TCG card from 1964. Have you ever seen this before?
Also in the trainer magazines. I like a lot of them.
This is 1964 Donruss Adams Family. It's a Wednesday Adams card. I don't know if anybody saw the new show Wednesday Adams.
Man's
but
trying to stonk off the show. That's what it was just.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I loved the show, and then I immediately went to eBay and bought that card. So doing a little weird stonking. It is a great show. So that was my first foray, and like the back of the cards make up. If you put them all together, they make up an image.
That's cool. Yeah, Wednesday is the show.
It is really super good. And that's where my brain just goes. If something's popular, I just like type on eBay and see if there's a TCG.
Trainer magazine cards. Great arts. You guys know these and the different variations.
Let me look them up. I should, but
I mean, my favorite one, so I remember seeing these when I got into like Versus series and like E series in particular. I started seeing like the Dragonite, Dragonair, Dratini one. I really liked those. Do you have any specific questions about like which trainer magazine cards? There's like the War Turtle, like the Ivysaur. I think that's like, I don't remember which volume's which. It's like 17, 19.
Yeah, there's a Dark Venusaur I'm seeing. It looks pretty cool. I've seen photos of these, but I never have like dove deep into.
There's like the Jolteon.
Thrifty said she just got the evolutions recently. I got the Jolteon pulled up right here. 2002.
I'm going to pull them up too, actually, and see the whole list here. Yeah. You know, a lot of these like very Versus series vibes, just like really cool, like hand-drawn art, a lot of non-hollow stuff. Just like super. I was super into like Versus series and all of these for a while. I definitely I have copies of all of these for sure.
Yeah, the only thing that I've followed that's similar to Trainer Magazine would be like the Not Awake cards. They come in those sealed mangas. Beyond that, maybe like the CD promos. Like I'm thinking cards that come inside of products.
Yeah.
Not Awake promos are awesome. Like I remember seeing, it might even still be listed on eBay, but I remember there's a Not Awake full sealed set for like $3,500, and I still regret not buying that because I'm like, that is such a cool thing to like display and like know the cards are still sealed in there because those things are so hard to find now.
I've never bought the sealed ones. Like, I don't know a lot. Like, I'm definitely as an example. Like, I'm not like deep into the Trainer magazine. You know, like I don't know how well they create like all these types of things. Like my interactions with them is I years ago saw them, thought they were really cool, and I bought myself a binder copy and like PSA 10 copies of them and moved on. Like, and I don't think about them that often, but they're cool. I often put these up in I have a display case where these sometimes go through. I have like a Versus Series display case. I tend to put these with those. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're speaking my language when it comes to that. Like any of those vintage, like Japanese weird way that you were able to get them promos, like I'm all about those. ANA, JR Stamp Rally, Masaki's, like anything cool like that is just, those are so fun to chase and so fun to see. And like kind of embodies the sector of the hobby that I just like, I could look at those cards all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through a period where I was like pretty into this stuff. It was similar around when I was doing like the play promo stuff. I like the Poke Park stuff. Some of the Domino's promos are cool. I really
Snorlax.
like
Domino Snorlax is like the best. I love
really
that
like
card.
the 7-Eleven promos. I think those are something I almost never hear people talk about.
Under
like
the radar for sure.
I'm not familiar with those at all. I'm gonna look them up.
Japanese 7-Eleven cards. They are very under the radar.
I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that
7-Eleven cards
that I like.
Toyota promos. Only the Pikachu though, because that's the only art that's like unique. Because the Arcanine in that folder.
KFC promo.
We're just showing them all. It's kind of funny too to think 7-Eleven, KFC, McDonald's, like Pokemon just hit the fast food chains like crazy. Good moves.
Japan Rails classic, but those got pretty much out there and got expensive.
So Black Ash Ketchum said, I'm just scrolling through random chat from earlier. He said first edition Charizard PSA 10 or Charmander prototype. I don't know what he means by Charmander prototype.
Yeah, so like a month or two ago, did you see that there became for sale, I think on Poketrox or however you say that, prototype Charmander. I don't know if it ever got sold, but it was posted.
What is a prototype Charmander?
Like from the creatures or Nintendo, like the early, not from the creatures deck, no, like from the early days, like a sketch of a Charmander, like on almost like looked like a piece of paper. It was like a prototype Charmander.
How is that validated?
I have no idea. Maybe they got it directly from an employee and have like provenance, but I think that's what he's talking about.
I mean, I trust Protrox just from the stuff they've been able to get, but or
check
Pro
out
Retro
the
X. I guess they changed it.
So
I see it. Here it is.
So like E-Series has definitely not crashed and has come down a lot less than like any other WotC. So, I mean, it depends what you mean by crash. Like they've certainly come down. Like a lot of the cards have come down maybe 20-30% from their highs, but there's some that I've sold recently at like all-time highs, particularly some of the low pop ones are close to all-time highs. So but that's the graded market. The raw market, I mean, the problem with going off raw market is like there could be the same card could sell for 20 or 150 if it looks like a 9 versus looks like a 6 or a 7. So it's just sort of like, I don't know. I'm just not really sure what he's looking at exactly. And then on the Japanese side's been solid. It's moved up quite a bit overall. Again, it depends on the time frame you're looking at. You know, pre sort of boom, a lot of those Japanese cards in PSA 10 were like 10, 20, $30. Now they're like, you know, 100, 200, 300. They've all like 10x'd. You know, on the English side, those cards were going like 40, 50, 70, 120, 200. Now they're going in PSA 10, like the lowest ones tend to go for like 300s is something in auction, probably still. You know, maybe up to 400, 300 being sort of the lowest. Maybe you get occasionally below 300, but I doubt it for the hollows. So at the highest, how much those were selling for, I'm not really sure. I mean, when you look at like the Charizard specifically, some of the Charizards have dropped more than other things, but also some of those cards were like only one-off sales. Like they only sold once. Now the crystals were different. The crystal Charizard,
consistent selling like Charizard.
Yeah,
like the price does not fluctuate.
The crystal Charizards, they got up to about 25,000 at the top, and then they came down to 21, hovered around 18, came down to about all the way to like 14. Then I saw one sell for 10, 11. Now they're back up to probably like 13-ish, 13, 14.
But they hover, like we're talking every week.
Maybe.
You want to talk about sales data? That card is sold so many times. Like,
what's the pop on Crystal Charizard in a 10?
200s.
Yeah.
It used to be at least. Maybe it's in the 300 now, but it's not going to be like way off that.
But go to PWCC and like just look every week. There's a PSA 10 Crystals art. Like there's so many of them. Not so many of them in total, just so many that have sold like at a card at that price point. Like it's I can't think of another card that has sold more consistently at that price point than that particular one. Like it's crazy.
That's interesting. It's an issue, like a card over 10K that trades hands that many times.
I would be shocked if old Josh, you made it.
Right. We can start the party.
Got to shut it down now. No. Black Ash Ketchum, just to answer your question, Charmander prototype or first edition first edition Zard PSA 10. 2 answers. If I'm collecting, I'm getting that Charmander all day, like without question, going for that. If I want to make money, I'm going first edition Zard PSA 10 because I can make the money quicker versus the prototype Charmander. But I'm glad you told me that, Mertz. I didn't even see them post that, and that's super cool.
It's a couple months ago.
First one to market.
The only way you can verify that is to get it directly from an employee, I would assume. Not the only way, obviously.
Yeah, they posted it on Christmas. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these like 9s and E-series are still doing pretty well, like compared to where they were also. Like we're talking 5, 6x multiples for the most part, 7, 8 here and there.
I've heard some anecdotal things about E-series, crashing as well. Other than that twice baked Jake comment there, I don't know where's that coming from, or I'm not familiar with that. It's interesting that it got brought up again, though.
Yeah, can anyone give me like specifics of things that are crashing or like specific stuff that crashed? I mean,
is it Japanese E-series? I've heard that a little bit in the Discord. I know somebody graded a lot of those. I've been watching them tank, so I don't know if it's specific to Japanese.
Yeah, again, Japanese E-series, like most of those 10s were worth $10 to $20. There was literally zero market for that a little bit ago, and then it went up real high. It's the same thing with the level X's. And there's just a lot more of that supply, and most of it wasn't graded. So you've seen, for example, like if you look at like Majestic Dawn or something, and you look at like how many like Glaceon or Leafeon like level, like PSA 10, what happened was like those in PSA 10 went for like $7,000, $8,000 in English all of a sudden. And like then it made people be like, wow, well, the Japanese ones shouldn't, I was at that time buying the Japanese ones for $30, $40, right? So it's like, wow, the Japanese ones shouldn't be $30, $40 when these are whatever. So they jumped up to like $600, $700.
Mason said he was talking raw English. Twice baked Jake was.
Yeah. Then a bunch got graded. And then it dropped the price down to like $200, $300, $400, like quickly on a lot of these cards. So I would assume some of the same U-series stuff has happened.
It's hard to take raw prices on older stuff like that. As in you can kind of use raw for a barometer, like on modern stuff that has more consistent condition out of the gates. You can kind of rely on near mint, prices, but like, maybe it has something to do with the fact that a lot of the really good mint stuff has been graded, and a lot of the raw stuff left is, I don't know. People are categorizing it as near mint and it's not, and all the good stuff's been graded. I don't know.
Like what examples was he giving? Like a month ago or 2 months ago now, I did an analysis of like all like the key cards from every set across like all of these, and like the most things had gone down year over year. 1 year ago was like 15-20%. So it's not like there's been, now maybe in the last month there's some things that have dropped 50, 60% more, but I'd have to see it to react. And then my question would be, was that an auction, and was that one sale, and was the last one like really high and it was like a really high buy it now that was like strangely out of place? It's just like that stuff happens all the time. That's why when I do my like breakdowns, I like take out the crazy outliers.
G1T Landon said, we have a grass, fire, and water turtle Pokemon. What do you want to see next?
Too many turtles.
Too many turtles. You don't like turtles? Grass, fire, and water turtle Pokemon. What do you want to see next? Ghost turtle? There's not really that much left.
I'm trying to keep up about like with all the new gens. Like there's just 1,000 Pokemon now. I don't know. I sometimes when I open modern packs, I feel like a dumbass. I'm like, I am so deep into Pokemon and I have no idea what this Pokemon is at all. And
I'm
it's,
give me
it's been
anything
out for
past
5
Gen 2.
years.
I'm like, I have no idea.
Like I
Like,
realized it when I was opening packs on the stream, a live stream the other day. And I was like, I feel like a dumbass. I don't know what this Pokemon is, but
I saw the Pokemon that's made of keys, and I was like, I'm out. Going back to Gen 1. Gonna go check out these that I know.
or Chandelure. Danny Phantom's favorite Pokemon, a chandelier with like fires on it.
I've been going heavy to non-sports cards, but our entire 97, 98, it starts at 200. So still, yeah. There's a lot of like the people who are like flipping and making money in this stuff. Like it's way easier in some of these other hobbies, let me tell you. But the liquidity isn't necessarily as deep, so there's definitely like more risk. But like on like 1977, like the original blue like Star Wars set, like your time would be way better spent searching for like mintier copies of that, trying to grade it and flip and make money than like looking for WotC stuff. 100%. The thing is, do you have a passion for that? Do you know anything about it? It's like, again, it's like where's your area of competency here? But like, for example, like if that's true, like he bought a full set, even just of the 1977, the original set for $200, like in a PSA 7, PSA 8, just the Luke #1 is going to be, $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, depending on the sell and the copy. So,
it is an interesting point, like for these other like TCGs that are out there, like Zelda's that for me, which Dan mentioned earlier, like here's the Zelda show like all day for sure. But like that was one that I did not expect to be as liquid as it is. And it's kind of insane, like how quickly those cards sell and how much of a market there is. It's like the money's in the niches. Like it's so crazy to see, like, I'll have Pokemon that are fairly popular that I'll throw up on like my eBay, and it'll take, I don't know, sometimes 3 to 5 days, and it'll sell. I throw Zelda up in a decent grade, and it's like that day. Like I've got multiple offers, ton of watchers. It's just interesting when you see that, when you find a market to where like the seller market is so not there, so the buyer market in turn is like saturated, like they're always looking for it.
sure.
It's such a good thing to do to kind of diversify outside of like a single TCG. And you were on that stream with me as well, like where we talked about other TCGs, and that's like, it's almost like the hidden secret of like just expand your knowledge a little bit and like find these other ones, and you can do so well to fund maybe your collecting goals in Pokemon or like whatever that looks like. There's just a lot of fun to be had in some of these other ones.
Kind of just it scares me a little bit to dip my toe into something that is not Pokemon, like the behemoth, relatively liquid, massive IP Pokemon. It kind of scares me to get deep into that.
And I think it depends on the IP, right? Because that's why I went to Zelda, because like it's Zelda, like everyone knows what that is. So I was like, I remember, and Jake and I had this conversation on my live stream like last week or whatever it was, where I was like, I just started searching IPs that I enjoyed, same as he did with Star Wars, except I did it with Zelda. And I was like, I'm going to take a look at these. Oh, wow, there's some actually pretty rare cards in here. Hey, this art's super cool. And it started just kind of checking those boxes. And you get intrigued, like we all do. Like we start doing our research, we start looking up things. And that's where I was like, I'm going to buy these and grade them. And if they don't sell, it's okay because I really like them. But then I found out like, oh, wow, there's an actual like really, really good market for this right now. And it's paid off like substantially, like doing that. But yeah, it's like you said, like maybe that fear of like the unknown has like kept a lot of sellers out, or people who buy to like grade and sell. Like maybe that's the reason for it. I'm not sure. And Jake, you're yawning over there, man. If you want to call it, dude, I don't want to keep you up.
He's got a big weekend coming.
I do have to go shortly. Yeah, I think there's just so much money. There's so much consumer money right now in so much of this stuff. And it I do wonder just like how sustainable it is. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Like I do worry for people like jumping into heavy. It's just like when there's free money, when it's like just take something cool, put it in a slab and make money. It's just like, how long is that really sustainable? And then how do you keep enough, like take advantage of that stuff while you can, but don't ever risk too much at any one point, and then constantly kind of keep it moving to the next thing, but then also have like, a bunch of exit strategies and different plans. Definitely don't overhold too much product if you're going to do that.
I think, yeah.
Yeah,
The
but like
putting things go.
like, and for others, I think particularly if you're working really hard and grinding really hard in Pokemon and it's not that effective, it's definitely worth looking into these other things. And again, it's just doing the math. Like you can go online and you can see how much of this is sold, how much are currently listed. If there's a bunch sold and there's none listed, and the margin's pretty good, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, right. It's like apply if that was Pokemon and you looked at it, would you buy it? But guess what? It's this thing that's different, but it's less money, but that's all still there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I look at this stuff and I see particularly stuff that's like, or like if something is serialized, or I really have a really good, really know how much of it's printed or very firm, that also is just another huge amount of confidence, right, Mertz? Because one of the hardest things about getting into another thing is having any sort of sense of how much of this stuff is there. And it's, as soon as it becomes popular, it could completely flood. So so that would make me like making big bets. Like one really excellent thing to do, right, is to try to buy a bunch of like the sealed product and then start to grade it and be the first one to grade. And then you have then you have the access to the only like mint stuff that the gamblers then want to come in. Then they buy the graded cards, then they buy the booster boxes from. It's like, there's just so many ways to make a lot of money there. But like the danger is that you're the fool. Like you're the fool, and the people who are already there were the smart ones who like, they're guaranteed there are a bunch of people who jumped into Pokemon who thought that they were doing that here. And they were probably pretty smart and savvy, but they just didn't understand that there was like so many people had already beat them here. And there was way more product than they realized. And then they got sort of smashed. So I remember having so many conversations with really smart, bright people telling me, I have these complete, base set Japanese and base set unlimited English. And like, how much of this could there really be out there? And then they would say, well, there's only this much graded in the pop report. And I would say, listen, there's like so much out there. I'd say I'm one guy and I have 45 copies of that card,
Right.
55 mint copies of that. Can you imagine how much must be out there if I'm one guy and I have them? I mean, it's impossible to quantify, but like, that's crazy. Right. And it's just sort of like, people can just like put their blinders on, to information they don't want to see. But it's definitely worth engaging in and checking out. And so many of these hobbies, particularly hobbies where they haven't graded anything, like the DBZ score hobby, I have so much mint DBZ score stuff that is like way better than the majority of the stuff on the market, because I was like, even at the time I was in it, there was like 3 or 4 guys grading DBZ. Now there's like a whole DBZ grading Facebook group, and there's lots of people showing their stuff, and that's getting other people into it. And like at the time, like the people who are buying from was like, grading stupid, no one likes grade. Like there's a lot of like anti-grading sentiment. But if you go into these hobbies where like no one grades ever anything, and you can buy the mint stuff for the same price as like the played stuff, like there's just a lot of things there that you can find competitive advantage that don't exist in Pokemon. But you got to do it, because you're just missing, like people like me are just, and many people like me are just kind of moving from one thing to the next and probably optimizing these things. And then you sort of, where do you jump in? When do you jump in?
I don't think I've got like enough of a passion for a different IP in that connection that I've got with Pokemon. I don't know if do you feel that you have to have that passion, or do you feel like you've got a certain level of passion for some and not others, and that affects how you want to engage with the TCG? And have you noticed that, or how spread thin can your passions be, and where does it come? Just like you enjoy finding something that's unoptimized and you're optimizing it rather than loving the IP.
So with something like DBZ Score, it's a dead game. There aren't new sets I have to learn. There's only so many promos and so many sets, so many key cards. it's not that hard to wrap your head around all of it. It's not that much time. It doesn't take that much engagement to understand all of that market. A few really good in-depth, like couple-hour conversations with like some guys from Australia who are like the biggest collectors in the world.
Australians love Dragon Ball. It's
Like
unbelievable.
got me where I needed to go basically. And then just like being on the Facebook group, I was like already among probably like the top 400 collectors in the world of this stuff after just like 2 months of being engaged. You know what I mean? Just because there's not that much of it, right? It's not that difficult. It's not that hard. It's not like Pokemon. Similarly, not quite. I mean, Star Wars is still active, but there just aren't that many sets. It's not as big. And there's only a few sets that I think are really good looking and key. And it's just not, Harry Potter with just the few sets and Wizards of the Coast, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Just focusing on vintage, a few sets, like Magic just focusing on like the 4 original set. Like you can do it in a way that like you're not way overextending yourself in terms of, and it's not pushing you way outside your area of competency, and like the risk reward is worth it. As far as passion though, passion's you need. So if you don't, like, I have a passion for like learning new things. I have a passion for all these IPs, and I have just a passion for card collecting and non-sports card collecting. So I have more fun doing all of it. If I had less fun just because it was like good money, I like wouldn't do it probably.
What about you, Peak? Did you get into DBZ after Pokemon for a while? Did you find like a certain kind of longing for a different challenge to get you into other TCGs?
So I've talked about this a little bit before. So I grew up on Pokemon the cards. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z the show. Loved Dragon Ball. Like knew everything, watched it all, like all of that stuff. And then after I was doing Pokemon for a while, I really just got bored. Like I was like, I've kind of gotten a lot of promos, like I'm enjoying this, but like I was almost at a stalemate, right? I'd picked up a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to, and then I was like, well, now what's left is like the really, higher expensive stuff. I'm like, and I don't really care about set cards. I was like, I don't want to go out and buy like cases and boxes and really flip a lot of Pokemon right now. I was like, I'm just going to look at Dragon Ball. I'm going to go check this out. So I joined the Facebook groups. I just lurked those for like 6 or 7 months and just learned, looked up stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm going to jump in. Like, and then with Zelda, it was more of a curiosity if there was something out there. And like Jake said, like with Zelda, there's 2 sets that have been printed. Well, technically 3, but the 2 main ones are Interplay. They made 2007 a Twilight Princess set, and then they made the 2016 Interplay set that had like all the games, like different arts and stuff like that. But like he said, it's not hard to get. Like it's like, here's the card list, like on the material, and it's like, this is your chases. Like they just tell you, like, here's your gold foils, go for these. Here's your silver foils, go for these. But you asked about the passion. Like, yeah, I enjoy these IPs a lot. And really what does it for me is I just have to like the IP, and they have to have really good art. That's it. If they have that, I'm gonna look into it and check it out. And somebody asked earlier about like, are there any other Zelda cards out there? 2007 Twilight Princess, the only PSA graded copies are $3,000 for those gold foils, and they do not show up like for sale. Like there's some raw copies, but they're like $500, $600, $700. So like they own that market. Whoever those guys are that have graded all this, and these are like 5, 6 certs. These aren't like older certs or anything. That's your hardest part that Jake's talking about, is like you get in and some guys already like just taking it. Like they bought them all, they graded them, and they're hoarding them, or there's a lot more that they're just sitting on. So it is fun to chase that stuff, and it's easier to follow than Pokemon. That's what I would say is kind of what got me interested in that. No, I wouldn't even say a challenge, because Pokemon's a huge challenge, but yeah.
And there just like aren't like super rich people in some of this stuff like there are Pokemon yet. Mm-hmm. So from the investment side, like the upside on some of the stuff is so insane, because some of the people who came into Pokemon and just like honestly like don't really know that much about it, just had a ton of money and were like, I'm just like gonna throw 200,000, 800,000, and $2 million, $5 million. Like some of the guys with the biggest collections, particularly the ones who came in the last few years, are just guys with tons of money who don't really know that much. And I don't even know if they're like that passionate or into it. They certainly don't spend the time that we spend. So part of the competitive advantage in these other spaces is they don't know about it. They can't find it easily. They're not being told about it by Gary V. Gary V doesn't know about them. You know what I mean? Like it actually, like you actually have to go on Facebook groups and talk to like random people who aren't influencers. It's just way more guarded. And not even like sometimes intentionally, but a lot of it just simply out of just you don't have like big charismatic people on YouTube pushing it up or introducing lots of people to it. You know, like there's nothing fundamentally why Pokemon should appeal more to adults, you know, as an IP, way more than Star Wars or Marvel or some of these other types of things. You know, obviously the fact that we like collect them as a kid, like putting that aside, which is like a massive major thing. You know, it doesn't make sense to me quite how Pokemon focused some people are, particularly if they've been here a really long time. And I think if you see people, the vast majority of people who have been here a long time and really like cards and are really fans, people like DJ Gigabyte is like a prime example.
Dude,
do everything. They like
everything.
go deep into everything. And so even from an investment standpoint or financial standpoint, it's like that will happen if all this stuff succeeds over a very long period of time. And it's the deeper people, the more knowledgeable people who will be in some of this other stuff. But it takes time. It takes energy. Like it's like while you're like, if I were to give you advice, Mertz, which I like would be extremely hesitant to do, but it, you know, I think if I were giving myself advice and I was in sort of your position, I don't really know exactly where you're at, but I would say something to myself like, okay, like, yes, this stuff is true, but let me get comfortable and maybe a little more bored with Pokemon before I move on. You know, it's like, let me get really comfortable with Pokemon and master some of these things here and feel like I really understand this market. And then let me maybe start to dabble a little bit in these other places.
I think that, yeah, I think that I haven't been around as long as either of you guys. And I think that I'm still getting my fill and my engagement and my, I'm still getting stimulated and challenged by learning new parts of the Pokemon market. Maybe there will come a time where I'm just like, you know what, I need a break. I need to change a pace. I don't know what that would be. I think that something that does interest me is video games, and I those aren't hot right now, but that is something. Got a little over this shoulder here, a little sealed copy of a demo disc for a PS1 game over here. So I already started dabbling a little bit, but that's something that I could see myself. But like, I think the main point is that I'm still finding new things to learn about in Pokemon. And it's like, I'm still learning new parts of the market and really starting to get deeper into selling and buying. And that's kind of engaging me enough at this time.
It's awesome to have that type of like focus on it, because like collectibles, there's so many things to collect. Like I'm grading VHS right now. Like there's like, I tell people that and they're like, what? Like,
Jurassic Park? Did you get that graded?
First print. It's at Beckett right now. I have no idea if they've received it because they never, update their site. I have no orders according to them, but no, they shot me an email, but that's about it. But yeah, like stuff like that. Like I've got I've got probably 7 VHSs, like just sitting in there, like just waiting to do that. But like these type of markets, like I just enjoy the idea of something encapsulated, something display wise, something with history. And that's just started to apply to like so many things. Like if I think it would be cool to collect, or maybe there is a market or a collector base for it, which I found in all of those things, including VHS, it's like, this is super cool. Like I can appreciate this for what it is and why people desire it.
Is part of the appeal for these types of things that aren't as optimized or known about, being kind of the first to market, or having that kind of like, nobody is really doing this, if not just for the investment potential, but just like engaging in kind of these different types of ways, and talking to maybe a guy on a Facebook group or who has no idea about YouTubers or anything, and interacting and getting information in kind of backdoor ways is part of that chase and interacting, like is that appealing and fun?
The most appealing thing for me is understanding why people want the stuff. And then once I understand that, then it's like, what do they look for? And VHS has been a really fascinating one for me, because there's so many different variants, and like there's not really that much information out there for the most part. But once you really start diving in, you're like, nope, that watermark's different. Nope, this is red tape instead of blue tape. It's just really fun to learn about that stuff. And then like you'll see something pop up on like some auction or something, and you're like, oh, that's it. Like that was me with like that Jurassic Park sealed VHS. I was like, it's first print. It's got 2 stickers on the front. It's got the watermark. It says MCA. Like, holy crap! Like I'm gonna grab this. Like, it's just fun to do that, because at that point your buyer market, or sorry, let me say it this way, your knowledge wall that you have to climb in order to know what to buy is so tall that it's like once you do get up there and you get a little bit educated into it, it makes it more exciting. Because like, and
Yeah.
it's just fun to talk to people about, like, whether it be Zelda, VHS. For me, like, I love sharing stuff with me. Like, do you know people collect this? Like, let me tell you about it. It's fun to share that knowledge and exchange it. So that's
Yeah.
what's appealing to me.
The only issue with that stuff can be if there's a high barrier to entry for the buyer. Is there a high barrier entry for the sell? For sorry, is there a high area? If ugh,
I get what you're saying.
yeah,
High barrier for entry for the seller. Is that make it even more difficult for the buyer to, like, come
when
out and
you're trying to
justify the
sell,
money?
both people are buying here. You're buying it, right? So and you need quite a bit of information, but that helps because then you're going to have less competition. But when you look to sell that item, are people going to know what it is? Like, how are they going to know what it is, and why are they going to pay a premium, and why are they going to care, right? And so that becomes, if you can get sort of there, and then obviously you can teach them, etc. But like what I look for, and is the best thing, is like, this thing is so obviously great. All I have to do is, like, ideally, I just have to put this in front of someone and they'll pay me 4 times the amount I paid for it. And that's how I feel about a lot of the stuff I buy. I literally just have to explain just what this is lightly, though. It doesn't even need to be like, this is this stamp, which means this variation, and we think this how much great. It's like, it's just like, here, you think cool, and then I say, guess how much this is, and they say $500, and it's like $4. And I'm like, and then they're like, holy crap, right? It's like those types of things. That's what I look for ideally, but
I think encapsulation helps, though, at least with that market, because
yeah,
they literally put on the label first print. It's authenticated. Cool. You can throw it out there and go, yeah, I like the idea of VHS, but I don't know. Oh, this one's already encapsulated and it's first print and it's got a grade. Sure, that's the price of what it is. Because there's not many that are out there that will say that. And they're definitely not going to buy raw. That's the biggest play with it, I think, is that the likelihood of them buying raw over graded is very slim, because it's so hard to know what you're looking for. So it's like, if you can source raw and know what you're looking for and then grade that, that's where you kind of create your premium at that point. And I'm not even trying to get crazy deep in it. I just enjoy hunting and looking for rare stuff, which it's out there, and these other markets too. So yeah,
yeah, but it's a long thing, and you can do this for as long as you want. That's the cool thing. So it's like, what's the rush for any of it? I mean, I guess the only rush at times for me feels like it's when I get into those stuff where I get that feeling occasionally where I'm like, I'm here before the gold rush. And I've gotten that feeling like a few times with stuff. It's way harder now. Like, I don't have that feeling as intensely now as I did with anything when I got into Pokemon initially. Like, I'm here before the gold rush feeling. But like, that's a feeling that has helped guided me well financially in my life. And and I'm very aggressive. It's like, I look around and I'm like, how does nobody see the value in this? What's
have
going
what have you done outside of Pokemon that's made you feel that and it's paid off?
outside of Pokemon
Yeah,
cards?
like, you're like, I'm here before the gold rush, and then maybe it wasn't like a Pokemon gold rush, but then you were like, wow, this really paid off.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, so I felt that way, not quite as much ever, but I felt that way a little with Marvel. I felt that way definitely with Disney, the Disney cards. I felt that way. I way underestimated the Marvel market and how much that was going to go up, and I made a decent amount. But if I had more of that gold rush feeling, I would have gone a lot deeper. And I felt that way with Disney. I felt that way
Harry
with,
Potter.
yeah, I felt that way with Harry Potter. Not as much. I mean, I probably bought $10,000 worth of Harry Potter that within 3 months went to 250,000 or something just insane. Like, not quite that much. 200,000 maybe. There was a 20xing for a short period. Now, I couldn't sell it all. The market wasn't even that deep. Like, I think I sold at that percentage. I was buying the boxes for one box for 25, and it went up to like 450 at one point or something like that, 450, 500. But I was only able to sell like 3 of them at that price.
Right.
Like, unfortunately, this is not a stock or crypto situation where you can just press a button and it's all gone.
It all gets dumped immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't know what's happening too in those moments. Like you don't know, is it going to continue to go higher? So you slowly start to sell. So I still have probably 50% of all of it, and it's come down tremendously. From where it is. Those $450 boxes are down to like 125 now or something. Still great from 25 to 125, but I felt that a bit on Harry Potter. Nothing like Pokemon though. And I feel some of that in Star Wars, but not nearly as much. And my concern with anything is just cards just seem so hot right now in general that like it just like it worries me that like even the best stuff in cards doesn't have quite that quality that I felt like the stuff did before 2018. Like any of it has.
See, that thought kind of concerns me. I don't know if concern's the right word, but I wonder about, since Pokemon has the actual TCG that has a gigantic player base,
Sure.
behind it, that is bringing in children to, cross over into collecting and gaining that base into the cards, and has a specific funnel. I worry about Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Super, these other things that are just collecting just the cards. Are they riding the wave of the card boom, like the TCG boom, the CCG boom, like that? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
For sure. I mean, how could they not?
Are you worried that like, maybe Star Wars collectors might not think that cards are cool, and they'll move on to like movie memorabilia and movie posters, and cards will be an ancillary secondary thing? Or that's just interesting.
Non-sports card collecting basically did not exist. Like, there was a boom for Pokemon, some collecting in Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh, but honestly, it's mostly been playing forever. Like, non-sports cards was not really a thing. So like, I think the infrastructure that has been built now, the terminology, the amount of people who are like doing this, and the amount of kids who are going to be into just like non-sports card, like it's not just going to be sports, is going to be more going forward. And a lot of this push that happened now in infrastructure is going to support that. But it all has to do with price, because everything you said is true. But it's like, if this other stuff is so cheap and there's so little of it and the IPs are so massive, that's where it becomes like, I like those bets. Again, it's like you have a card, you have modern cards that are going for $400, $500 that maybe there are 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 of or something in the world in Pokemon. And then in Star Wars, you have a serialized card to 5 or to 50 or to 99 that's going for $3, $5, $15, that there's only 5 in the world, 10 in the world, 50 in the world, of like a key character that looks really cool. Like, it's such a like that number difference is so massive that I feel like there's upside in that. But
and it wouldn't mean anything if they printed like a ton of different Star Wars sets like they did sports. Like, but they didn't do that. So like that 1 of 5, like it's like, that's amazing.
There's only like one set a year of like the specific set, for example, a year. And there's only ever been 5 sets so far. So and now the idea that it's going to dilute it because they're just going to keep doing it every year and they're going to do more of it is absolutely true. Like, there's all sorts of negatives, and there's all sorts of like I would be very careful to take any of this stuff too seriously as some genius investment. Like, it's very hard to predict. Now, one thing though is that all it takes is one random Steve Aoki one time, anytime over the next 30 years, and I could cash out. It doesn't need to be like some linear investment. I need to hold the right looking cool cards of a humongous IP that are extremely rare, that have the right moment. And I could 1,000x at the prices I'm paying.
And if not, still happy you own them.
That's
the key.
Yeah. And if not, like, they're still cool and you're enjoying it, and like the prices you're getting in, like, there's enough of a fan base, and there's been a big fan base of Star Wars card collectors back through the 70s. Like it is a thing. and obviously the amount of money that Disney's putting into all these new shows and movies, and I think Disney as I think that Star Wars as a concept and Star Wars as a story is much more appealing to people of all ages than Pokemon is, to be honest. The story and the characters. I just think that there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on something like that, and other things too. But I would need very extreme rarity and very, very cheap prices. There are cards that people are paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for in Star Wars that are serialized cards out of the modern set. Stupid. Like, as an investment, these people are morons, and
They're
they may
losing.
be right. Like, someone paid $16,000 for like a super like non-autographed, not even something. It's one thing like I'm buying some like, you know, on card auto of like you
Harrison
know,
Ford.
and even better, characters who have died, where the actors have already died, so they can't even make any more on card autos in the future, right? People are paying $10,000, $5,000 for one of ones that they could just reprint again and again and again. And it's like, it's still a really cool card. If that card was $50 or $100, I would think, wow, that's extremely good value. That's sick. But even in Star Wars, there are things that are $50, $100 that are really freaking cool. And then there are things in Star Wars that are going for like 5, 6, 10. That screams amazing to me. That's just like amazing. I'm getting great value. There's all like, I can do all sorts of things. I bought cards one week and then sold them for $400 2 weeks later. Like, there's just, you know, I bought a card for $50, sold it for 400 a couple weeks later. Like, there's just, and it's just sort of like, it's sort of it's more the Wild West. Nobody grades. The cards are very hard to grade. I'm the first person to be grading a lot of, there's all sorts of advantages that I use to be effective in Pokemon that I can like use there that nobody's doing. I'm not
spot on.
Hundreds
That's
of people who have the same skill set as me. Anyway, buy really cheap, buy low, buy into things that people are super negative about. Don't go in once people are speculating a lot and things are already expensive into any of this stuff, is what I would say. So whatever, you know, I would not be buying, to be completely honest. I think it's extremely different than buying like precious metal gem Marvel cards that have already gone from $100 to $3,000 in a few years, you know. And not saying that they can appreciate and they can't continue, and people, you know, I don't know, but buying them at $5, $10, $15 is, it's also like the implied odds. You know, it's sort of like, well, even if I think this is going to fail 9 out of 10 times, or even 19 out of 20 times, if it hits, the amount that I'll make is so much that it's attractive. These types of things, Mertz. You know, very different than buying $2,000 to $3,000 Pokemon cards that I think are going to be really popular for 50 years, and then thinking, well, maybe there's a decent chance it's 6X's over the next 50 years. It's like a very different thing.
I think everything that you say makes a lot of sense. I'm mostly just playing a little devil's advocate, just so for my own curiosity, trying to learn and understand.
And if these things were even twice as expensive, I probably wouldn't be buying them. I like low value. I like buying cheap stuff.
But if you buy a ton of cheap stuff, then it's like, you know, you're still spending a lot of money. Even if you buy thousands of $20 items, you know, you're still spending a lot of money.
The exact same, right? It's the old. So this is the saying that's used very, very effectively in penny stocks, right? In the stock market, it's like you can lose 100% of whatever you put in. It doesn't matter the price point that you put it at. All these things can go to zero. And the fact is that when you buy a bunch of penny stocks, it can be really hard to sell all of those freaking penny stocks, particularly if they're illiquid. Easier with stocks, but particularly if there's not a market for them and it's illiquid. So there'd be a much larger danger to do what I'm doing, for example. But what I will say, just to give a little insight, I think there's already a really solid growing market for it. The prices are so cheap of the singles versus the sealed product. The pull rates are so hard. People are so into breaking it. Like, there's a lot of things I know about it that make me feel like I'm getting in the specific cards I'm buying so below what they should already be going today, and people aren't grading them. And I know how hard, I'm the only one who knows how hard to grade these things are graded, because I'm literally the only person on on the entire earth who's grading these things right now, which is stunning to me, to be honest with you. It's very strange, but whatever. It's what it is.
That's so how I felt about Zelda. I said in
really
48% of their entire PSA
and
population.
it's really because
merch,
everyone is just followers. Like the vast majority of people in these spaces are just followers, and they wait. It's like people are grading all of the sets that have skyrocketed in price, even though but only because other people have graded. It's like, it's insane. It's like amazing to watch. People ask for permission, and everyone is so afraid. It's like, but it's like, it's like my cost basis on these like out of 99 cards that they're 99 in the world of these cool looking cards, all graded, is like $20 on a lot of them, all in. And I can flip them immediately for 60 to 80. I think they probably should be worth around 200. And then their stonk value could be 500 to 1,000, if you really ask me. So it's sort of like pretty freaking great. It's like, and I really love it and I really enjoy it, and it's cheap enough. It's such a small percentage of what I'm doing. I have my stock portfolio. I'm not really seriously looking this to support my life in any way. It's fun to speculate on. If you don't have all of those things, I would not be doing this, or I would be doing it really lightly, or just kind of touching in it, honestly.
Diversifying, having just an extra thing to play with.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people do the opposite of value investing, and they only want it when it's going up, and that's the complete opposite, obviously.
So the fact that a certain card can 5x and most of the people who own that card still want to hold is a very good sign. So the one danger of this is absolutely true. The one danger of this is that usually people don't start selling until it starts coming down, because most people hold it because they really like it and they think there's a chance it'll keep going up, and it'll stay what it is. You actually don't see the panic until it starts coming down. That's a really important psychological lesson to learn. So until, like, again, 2 years ago, everyone was like, and I had very big people in the hobby come on my channel and say, nobody would sell this card. Nobody would sell that card. Like,
look at all the trophies that have come out. Look at all the snap cards that have come out.
And, but it's extremely rare. Like, people literally claiming to me, I know all of the owners and I know they wouldn't sell it. Like, just stupid things, like nonsense things. And it's like, well, as soon as it started coming down, everyone was like, oh crap, I made a ton of money on this, but I didn't realize it. I need to realize that gain now. And then that keeps the steam rolling. And then all of the people who are looking to buy, they stop buying, because they're like, oh, I can wait and get in at a cheaper price. And that's sort of the psychology of how markets collapse so quickly, or how prices collapse so quickly. So you want to buy when you're hearing a ton of people wanting a card, but still not going in on it. That's the time to buy. That's when you're psychologically at a low point. You have a ton of people who are like, I want to buy this, but I think it's going to keep going down. Those are the same people that as soon as it starts coming back up, are all going to jump into
buy it. You'll sell it to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, very easy, should be fairly easy to understand psychologically, very hard to put into practice, because to have your ear to the ground, to know what people are thinking, and to know how many people there are out there who are going to buy at this price point and buy at that price point, very tricky. One thing we saw with the Moonbryon, that's a positive thing on that card, is we saw that happen, right? We saw the Moonbryon collapse about 50% in value in like 2 weeks. And then we saw a bunch of people jump back in and buy it, which shows that at that price point, at least at that point, with that amount of people, there was enough people who like weren't scared off by that and really wanted it. And there were a bunch of people waiting to buy it. Like, seeing those types of movements. And this is why in the stock market, you have the floor tested a number of times. And there's actually like people who love charts. They're like, well, the floor needs to be tested 3 times. And once it gets to this low again, it's going to start coming back up. And the truth is they're often right. There is often sort of a psychological pattern of like how many times a floor needs to be tested before it starts trickling back up. We will likely see that in the Pokemon card market too, to some degree, where we're going to, something needs to get tested, needs to come up a bit, it gets tested again, needs to come up a bit. Like, you're going to see those types of patterns.
So 777 said, what's going to make it go down if you only see it sell and an auction a few times a year? Availability.
Let's see.
All it takes is a couple more auctions of it going lower, and it pulls more out. I mean, that's just, and the only thing I can point to is like the Illustrator is probably a good example. You look at some of the trophies that have sold that have come down tremendously. First edition Charizard, like base set Shadowless Charizard, like insane. You saw how many came out in the last 2 years, and the price. I mean, compare it to what it was when people really didn't see those selling. Gary was all over Pawn Stars, like, I'm never selling, I'm not taking any amounts. Like, and he was the Charizard guy for the longest time. Like, he's the one who has it. But now you see them compared to what they were. I mean, and Jake, you may know based on analysis that you've done in the past, like, I can't even remember how much those have dropped. The Illustrator especially has dropped tremendously.
Yeah, the Illustrator is tougher because it's sort of like celebrities buying it and who really, like, it feels like
those are hard to count.
Yeah. What is the fair price point to put? Logan's sales were just a nonsense sale. Like that he's the only person on the planet who would have paid anywhere close to that amount. As far as like the Charizard sales, it got up to around like 400. There might have been some a little chatter around like 450, and it's come down to what is it now? 200-ish probably.
I think even a little bit lower than 200.
180. Maybe.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on the quality of the copy. A better quality might go for 200, 220.
You're talking about an Illustrator 9?
We're talking about a Charizard base set first edition.
PSA
I thought they came down to like 150.
Maybe, but there were so many that started showing up. Like,
has there been a PSA 10 first edition 150 sale yet?
I believe so. Maybe somebody in the chat correct me if I'm wrong.
That's exactly what I guessed it would bottom at in that video with Charlie. 160.
I thought it was like 180, but
I could be wrong. I thought I could have sworn I saw 150 sell.
But yeah, what goes down is that all it takes, from my experience watching only high-end cards that have a low amount of copies, so that you can actually like somewhat follow. Maybe you take the celebrity asterisks out of it. Is it takes one bad auction, and then the auction after that really defines like where it's going. I think.
Why are people auctioning it? I mean, and this is something
not smart.
No. The answer is because they want the money and they can't find a buyer. Like, people don't think people think it's not smart, but in most cases it's actually their best option. They need
or it's a desperate option because they're choosing to pay taxes on
the money.
They're choosing to get it immediately.
They put themselves in that position, or they think the markets continue to collapse. And
good point.
Listen, there were conversations I had with people who came on this channel, right, and said, who would sell their Charizard? I know all of the people, like these types of, like, it can't come down. There aren't that many people. It's like it's a
domino effect.
Yeah, and we're such a young hobby, and people are broke. Like, people have 95% of their net worth in these things. Some people 90%. It's like
so scary.
Think through it. Of course they're going to panic sell. Of course they're going to and when it's going up, they can justify holding it because it's going to keep going up or stay the same price. It's why all this investing language is so scary, and it's why like everyone being able to afford their collections is what actually puts somewhat of a floor. Anyway, I have to run really soon. I'm going to give you guys just sort of like last thoughts, last words. Do you guys want to share anything? If there's any question or anything you want to pull in the chat that we haven't talked on, but
I think it's good. Go for it, Mertz.
Yeah, just thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. My second appearance on the Pokenomics channel. First time I was on here, I did not have a YouTube channel. I do now. And I appreciate you having me on. A lot of fun. I love chat. 3.5 hours later, it's crazy that we've been talking for 3.5 hours. Like, the time just flies on these lives. So I appreciate it. Yeah,
this might be my longest live to date at this point. First Pokenomics feature, I would say. So thanks for having me on, Jake. This is a good time. 2023 Pokemon collecting, just, again, recap, be patient, buy what you like, and understand why you're buying, why you're collecting it. It's the best advice I think out of this video I could share, at least from my uneducated opinion. But anyway, it was fun. Chat, you guys were awesome. I think we had we've got like 75 people in here at 2 a.m. your time, Jake, 1 a.m. my time. It's insane. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Jake, this was awesome. Thank you for staying up, dude. I know you got a crazy couple of days in front of you, but really enjoy talking cards with you, man. It's always a good time.
Thank you both for coming on. Both of these fellas' channels are in the link in the description. If you can take a second to go over there and subscribe to them, I would appreciate it. I'm sure both of them get it.
I think the link is broken for my channel. It takes you to a broken page, but
I will try to fix
that was on purpose. It's fine.
Go to that broken page and then give up.
We fixed the glitch. We fixed the glitch.
It's still showing up. Yeah, if you want to send me a working link, I'll also just fix. I'm sure I can fix it. But yeah, go subscribe to these guys' channels, please. And thank you all. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks for supporting all that good stuff, and we'll see.
Patreon plug.
Yeah, when we'll see you guys again in the next one.
Thanks, chat. See you guys.
Night, everyone.